We're reading today from Warrior Is by Harley and Robin Zephyr. It's the story of their great-grandfather who, in real life, killed Custer at Little Bighorn. And in fact, there's a map of the war, as it were, the battle. And they say that he is now the spirit keeper of Custer, which is remarkable. And there's a page-and-a-half introduction to the book, and then it becomes, a historically accurate novel, basically. This story is the traditional and cultural account of the life of Nikogju Lakota warrior Mato Nyanpi, saved by Bear, which his name in English, also later known as Scarleg. Warrior is based upon a true story. What you are about to read has been told to us through our family, passed down as oral history from generation to generation. Every family has its own story. This is ours. It's up to you to visualize and experience the events described herein in order to determine what you believe or what you choose to accept from what you learn from these pages. You've likely never read a story quite like this before. In Warrior Is, the reader is able to visualize and experience the events and circumstances of Mato Nyanpi's life. Many times the story is told in the present tense, such as if you were walking with Saved by Bear and his people as the events unfold. This was our original manner of storytelling. Other times the story is narrated in the past tense to account for a past perspective. Those of us who may not be entirely fluent in particular words or specific language as much as we may be fluent in spirit and honest communication, the life messages many times can be more meaningful than just the written or spoken words. Warrior Is follows the timeline from the time of creation, moving through Saved by Bear's birth in 1849 and going up to July 1876, 2 weeks after the Grass Battle. Please exercise your free will and follow your conscience when reading this story. The spiritual side is called upon you to open your spirit so that you may read this tale and learn about these events through your own spirit. And, continues sort of like in that line, but here, right to the book. Prologue. He smelled the yellow of the sun. His spirit was alive and energetic. He felt the energy in his chest and all along the blood running through his veins. He looked to his left to see his great friend by his side. The strong scent of sage caressed his nostrils and reminded him of home. The movement over the high-running hilly ridge to the south caught his eye. He and Swift Bear sensed and felt the pathway opening up. So much had occurred so quickly, so suddenly, so dramatically. Their call to duty, his call to duty, filled his mind, his heart, his spirit. Today, it was meant to happen. It was presented to the people from the Creator. The plan was made. The warriors summoned. The preparation was done. It all led to this place, this portal in time. The sparse clouds to the west resembled mare's tails, and for a brief moment he remembered his white stone friend in the White Mountains. He remembered his spiritual commitment to protect his people, Grandmother Earth, and the sacred Hisapa. And time stood still for a moment, a small moment in time, through all of the ancient and original history of all the moments of time. And as the group of the horse-mounted soldiers rode briskly over the far ridge, the Creator shined that warm, nurturing light upon these warriors. Such as Creator had been doing since the beginning of time, since the beginning of Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky, and at the beginning of all things. All the moments of time forever had arrived here, now. It had come to this. The Creator's strong will and great invisible hand had placed them here. It was the Creator all along. It always was. It always would be. For one to know what led the young Lakota warriors to be here at this fateful site near the Greasy Grass River on this warm, sun-drenched day, one must go back in time. Way back to the beginning, when it was only the Creator, and the Creator of all things decided to create a new world. Her name would be Unsimaka, Grandmother Earth, and she would be created to hold and sustain life. All kinds of beings, all kinds of people would be given and placed upon and within her to show her love of life. And this is how it all began. Chapter 1, Origin. The human beings evolved from the spirit. Before arriving in Wind Cave, we were star people. Many of us came from a place called the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, an ancient star grouping and constellation that contains worlds comprised of the gift of life-giving water. Water is life. Mini Wiconi. The Pleiadian influence is an absolute, but those of us who claim to be relatives of the Pleiadians share a common bond with other indigenous people, regardless of where we are geographically on the earth. We will always remain Pleiadian star people. Spiritually, we have become human beings of different races and ethnicities, but the origin of our spirit is the water. And for us, and as to who we are, as the tribal people in a family way, our name is Minkoju, its evidence. It means life's subsistence through the gathering and planting by the waters and or river. The Minikochu spend their lives living by the waters. This is something that many of our own people do not know or understand, but this is our history, not only of our physical existence, but also the history of our spiritual existence on Unsimaka. The book is Warrior Is by Robin and Harley Zephyr.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, happy Monday. Thom Hartmann here with you. We've got a lot on the program today. We're going to start out with a rant about trust and what the Democrats have to do to basically put our country back together. I'll dig into that in just a moment. And a little later on, Saru Jayaraman will be here with us, who is the, hang on just a second, let me get to it, the president of One Fair Wage and the director of the Food Labor Research Center at UC Berkeley. Wrote a brilliant piece called "Take Off Your Mask So I Know How Much to Tip You," about the crisis basically in the service economy. Alex Lawson is going to drop by and talk about Donald Trump's, he's with Social Security Works, the founder and I believe president, about Trump's last minute attack on Social Security. And we're also going to briefly get into Medicare Advantage. Tomorrow is the last day to sign up for it, something that I strongly recommend against. And our third hour, the entire hour, is going to be Megan Hatcher-Mays. She's been on the program before. She's with Indivisible, and we're going to be talking about the future of politics in America. I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation, and you're going to want to hear it. But just to kick it all off, we need to rebuild trust in both democracy and our form of government, the American government. And to do so, there are two steps to doing this. The first has to do with holding seditious Republicans accountable, and I'll get to that in a minute. And the second has to do with restoring the protective functions, really, of government, which is the reason why we create governments. I mean, read the preamble of the Constitution. And so there are some very specific things in order to do these two things, to hold Republicans to account so that the next Republican president isn't even worse, and to restore Americans' faith and confidence in our government. I mean, you know, first of all, let's diagnose the problem here. The simple reason why 78% of Republicans, about 20% of independents, and around 10% of Democrats think Joe Biden didn't actually win the election, that, you know, Donald Trump had the election stolen from him, is because of trust. I mean, we are trained to trust our presidents. You know, I mean, it's a very straightforward thing. We have always trusted our presidents. It hasn't always worked out. Right? Lyndon Johnson lied us into the war in Vietnam. George W. Bush lied us into the war in Iraq. McKinley lied us into the Spanish-American War. Yeah, we know that. And those are viewed as betrayals. Ronald Reagan lied to us about Iran-Contra. Bill Clinton lied to us about having sex with Monica Lewinsky. Yeah, sometimes Republicans lie. But broadly speaking, when something comes out of the White House, we believe that it's true. We think that we can trust it. And there's a reason for this. It is that trust is basic to life. We can't survive without trust. Science, religion, and conspiracy theories are all essentially the same thing. They're all attempts to explain things that for the average person are unexplainable. Right? I mean, if you're watching or listening to me right now, there are electrons flowing from my home to a server in New York that are going back to our studio in Portland, that are then going to a satellite uplink in Denver, that are then going up to a satellite and then are coming down to a local radio station near you, or going over to Dish or Direct and coming down to you as TV on Free Speech TV. That actually has to bounce twice off Denver because Free Speech TV all this happens in a split second. We don't understand how this works, but we trust science, right? We trust that the gas gauge on our car is telling us the truth. We trust that the medication our doctor prescribes for us isn't going to kill us. Trust is essential for a society to work. Otherwise, things don't work, right? Trust is also essential for religions, which is why the pedophile priests and the Jerry Falwell Jr. and Jim Jones, why these are such huge betrayals. Because we have to feel safe and that we can trust our institutions, even religious institutions that are based on something that's not objectively seeable. It's, faith. And trust is essential to politics. And what's been going on for 40 years now, since Reagan took over the Republican Party, is that trust that the GOP built during the Eisenhower years has been used by politicians like Donald Trump and George Herbert Walker Bush and Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush. These four Republican presidents have consistently lied to us about a whole collection of things, from Iran-Contra to the first Gulf War. Oh, they're throwing babies out of incubators, right? It turns out that was the Princess of Kuwait. It's lying through her teeth to Congress. I mean, it's just like, these Republican presidents have consistently betrayed our trust. That's not to say Democrats haven't lied occasionally, but their lies just pale in comparison. And so here we are. The average, just like you don't understand how it is that your computer screen lights up, we don't have the ability, or climate change. The average person doesn't look outside and go, oh, look at that, the climate's changing. I mean, the weather's weird, but, So we have to trust. We have to trust our scientists. Trust is like this core thing. And the Republican Party has been betraying our trust. They've been betraying our trust when it comes to everything from religion to science to politics. And similarly, the average person has no way of knowing if there's such a thing as voter fraud. Dead people voting twice, people who aren't citizens voting. Average person has no way of knowing if that's true. Science has looked at this. Several scientific organizations have looked at over 1 billion votes in the last 20 years and determined that, maybe 20 or 30 times a year in the entire country, somebody who's not eligible to vote will vote, or somebody will try to vote twice. But basically, it's inconsequential. It's meaningless. But the Republicans have been pushing this for 40 years in order to use it as an excuse to knock mostly black people off the voting rolls, to disenfranchise people, to make it harder for people to vote. And look what's happened. So when you consider everything that's going on, and Donald Trump now with his "I've been stabbed in the back" routine, which is, right out of Adolf Hitler's playbook. Hitler's tough guys were busting up Munich beer halls in the 1920s. As a result of that, Hitler went to prison, where he wrote Mein Kampf, and he made a huge comeback. God forbid that's what's coming up right now. But if we want to clean this up, we need to impose severe consequences on these Republican traitors. Bill Pascrell, the Democratic congressman from New Jersey, is absolutely right. Nancy Pelosi should refuse to seat the members of Congress, the Republican members of Congress, who signed this seditious document saying that Trump should be seated as president regardless of the outcome of the election. And the bar associations should strip them of their law licenses, and the media should ignore their bleats. And the ongoing Republican voter suppression campaigns, including the new one challenging signatures, needs to be dismantled state by state. Corporations need to be broken up. We need to undo Citizens United. And meanwhile, America needs to start working for Americans. And this is the critical piece of the whole thing. I'll pick this up on the other side of the break and share with you my thoughts on what we need to do going forward to restore trust. Because without trust, you can't have a functioning government.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Stick around. We'll be right back. Also, we'll be picking up your calls here at 202-808-9925. And welcome back. There are a number of really amazing stories in the news, too, that I wanted to get into today. First of all, just consider the logic of this. The Republican Party, and I say the Republican Party because Ronna Romney McDaniel, Mitt's niece who runs the RNC, is saying this out loud. She's the head of the RNC. A majority of elected Republicans in Congress signed on to this document, basically saying that the election was rigged, that the Democrats are so good at rigging elections, they are so competent at this, that they were able to deny Donald Trump his place in the White House. Now, oddly enough, none of the Republicans who actually won in their elections are saying, hey, wait a minute, my election was not legitimate. I shouldn't have won. They're not saying this. But just think about this. If the Democrats really were that good at rigging elections, why don't we have single-payer health care? Why aren't we taking action on climate change? Why don't we have clean water, strong laws? Why are we drilling in Anwar? Why don't we have solar cars right now? Why do we have Fox News? If the Democrats are that good at rigging elections, why is there still student debt in the United States? Why aren't colleges free? If the Democrats are so good at rigging elections that they can basically make anything happen that they want, including kicking out Donald Trump. This is a multi-state effort, right? I mean, the Democrats apparently, according to Fox News this morning, Stephen Miller was on there this morning on Fox News saying, we have alternate electors who are voting today. And we're going to present alternate slates to the states. And of course, this is what happened in 1876. You had 4 states, Oregon, Louisiana, Florida, and South Carolina, as I recall, who submitted 2 slates of electors to from the Electoral College, those 4 states. And as a result of that, neither Hayes nor Tilden won the majority of the votes. And it got thrown to the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives, after doing a whole long song and dance with committees and panels and special commissions and stuff, gave the election to the Republican, even though he lost the popular vote and he lost the Electoral College vote. He got fewer votes in both cases. But he became president. Rutherford B. Hayes, 1877, sworn in March of 1877. That's what Stephen Miller went on Fox News this morning saying, we're going to try and do this. We're still going to try to do this. Now, I don't think they have a chance in hell. I'm not worried about it at all. But this is the argument that they're making, that the Democrats are so good at rigging elections. If that's the case, how is it that Al Gore, who won the election by 500,000 votes in 2000, wasn't president? How is it that Hillary Clinton, who won the vote by 3 million votes, wasn't president? It's really bizarre when you think about it. I mean, just the core, simple, straightforward logic of the whole thing. It's bizarre. We'll be right back. Stick around. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Hey, we just put a new video up for supporters of our program over at thomhartmann.com, and it's about what would have happened if back in 1941, when we were attacked by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor, what would have happened if Franklin Roosevelt had said, well, you know, Hawaii didn't vote for me, and it's only 2,404 dead people. I mean, that's not so many, right? What's the big deal? Or what would have happened if my dad, who, you know, joined the Army to go fight in World War II, if my dad had said, well, you know, it's only 2,400 people, and I live in Michigan, and they're way over in Hawaii. They're never going to get to Michigan. That's the poison that is spreading in America right now, that we really need to take on. And so anyhow, that's the essence of this, the new video that we just put up. You can find it over at thomhartmann.com, and I think you'll find it fascinating. Thank you for your support. So as I was saying, there's a few things that we just absolutely need to do in order to restore trust in America and in order to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. We danced awful close to losing our republic. We almost became an oligarchy. I mean, you know, to a large extent we have been for a long time. That's kind of another conversation. But we almost became a dictatorship. Let's be more specific. And 126 Republican members of Congress said, yeah, we're good with that. And the chairperson of the RNC said, yes, that's what we're all about. And the vice president gave a speech saying, yes, this is our mission. The Republicans are actually trying to overthrow our democratic republic. They're spitting in the faces of every American family who ever had anybody, any member of their family throughout history who served in any American war, or who ran for political office, or who even voted. They're saying, sorry, guys, you don't count. So step one is to hold these Republicans to account. Bill Pascrell, the Democrat from New Jersey, points out that in the 14th Amendment, it says, you know, very, very straightforward, that if you engage in sedition, which is merely calling for the overthrow of the government of the United States. And make no mistake about it, Joe Biden is the president-elect. He's the elected next president of the United States. Calling for the overthrow of that election is sedition by any definition. And the 14th Amendment says if you engage in sedition or rebellion, obviously this is written after the Civil War, but if you engage in sedition, you may not hold a federal elective office in the United States. So number one, Nancy Pelosi needs to say, we are not going to seat these 126 members of the House of Representatives. Now, I realize she's already said, you know, I'm just going to let bygones be bygones. I think that's crazy. If you don't want to, if you want to forbid them their seats, if you don't want to prevent them from serving for the next 2 years, which is what the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States requires, then at least prevent them from being seated between now and, say, February 1st or March 1st. Make them pay a price for their crime, for sedition. It's against the law, and it is the most un-American thing you can do. So number one. Number two, Democrats in every state who are attorneys and members of the bar of those states need to file complaints in their state with their state bar associations against their state's representatives who signed off on this attempt to overthrow the government of the United States, and have these people thrown out, lose their law licenses. And number three, we need to start taking apart this Republican scheme to prevent people from voting. Meanwhile, to restore faith in the United States, we need to do what 33 of the 34 OECD nations have done, all but us. We are the only country in the world that has not made health care a right, so everybody has access to health care at no cost or at very little cost. And we are the only country that has not made higher education, or education right across the board. I mean, Betsy DeVos wants to rip up our public schools, for God's sake, but I'm talking about colleges here, that has not made college educations a right. We could wipe out all the student debt and all the medical debt in the United States simply by reversing the last two Republican tax cuts for billionaires. All of it. But the Republicans are saying, oh, we can't do that now. It's the deficit. Oh, my God. We need to make health care a right in the United States. We need to make education a right in the United States. And we need to wipe out medical and educational debt. These are plagues on our society. They're holding back an entire generation of young people, particularly the educational debt. They're wiping out the inheritances of young people as older people get sick and get wiped out financially. I mean, Congress is debating ending surprise billing, and the Republicans are opposed to that, for God's sake. Another reason not to seat them. We have to restore the faith of the American people that government actually works for them. This is job one of the Biden administration. And just getting a vaccine out ain't going to do it. I mean, Donald Trump is doing that. Kind of semi-incompetently. They didn't plan for it. There's nowhere near enough vaccine going around. We're here in Oregon, it's going to be months before we even get enough to vaccinate every healthcare worker in this
You're
state.
listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
But Biden can pick all this stuff up and run with it, and needs to. And you and I need to be the ones who are pushing him to do it. It's one of those good news, bad news days. Hey, it's Monday. It's the beginning of a brand new week. It's also the beginning of the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraising drive, the pledge drive. And the bad news is that we are only halfway to our goal, and we just finished 2 weeks of this pitch. We have 5 days left. That's the bad news. We've really got to pick this up. The good news is that Andrew from San Diego has said that if we hit our goal for this fundraising drive, he's going to kick in an extra 10 grand. And that means that your donation, as it gets us toward this goal, could help us unlock that extra $10,000 that is a not inconsequential amount of money for Free Speech TV. I mean, what we're trying to raise this week is just an additional $90,000. This network it's not, NBC with 1,000 employees or 10,000 or whatever it is. I think there's about a little fewer than 20 employees at Free Speech TV, and they do everything very carefully, very thoughtfully, very cautiously in terms of costs. Free Speech TV is always just, run like a really, really well-run nonprofit that is very, careful about where the money goes. And on the other hand, has always relied on its listeners, its viewers, you, to keep it on the air. So here we are. We're way behind. I mean, we should be at least 2/3 there, right? Because we're 2/3 of the way through the fundraising drive now. We're only 50%. So we're way behind. And Andrew in San Diego has said, hey, let me dangle this little carrot out here in front of you. So your donations all throughout this week could help unlock that $10,000 from Andrew and help us hit Well, first we have to hit the $90,000 goal for the week. And then, we'd have $100,000 for the week. And we will have hit our goal for this 3-week fundraising drive, which means you get another 3 months of Free Speech TV, and I get to go back to reading book reports. So it's, we all win, right? But here we are right now. Anyhow, there's a couple of different ways to give to Free Speech TV. You can either make a monthly recurring donation, which is like a really important. That's the foundational stuff for Free Speech TV. You've probably noticed if you listen to your local NPR affiliate that they have almost entirely moved to this model. They started that, 6-7 years ago, and they've really pushed in that direction, at least here in Oregon and Washington, D.C., where I've heard these pitches. And it's for a good reason. It's the same reason Free Speech TV is doing it, is it gives the organization the ability to predict, to budget. Budgeting is a form of prediction, right? But to predict with some confidence how much revenue they're going to have, because they know how many people have authorized them to say, yes, take $5 a month off my credit card, or $20 a month, or $25 a month, or $30 a month, or whatever it may be. So those kinds of gifts, those monthly recurring gifts, are really important. And so are the one-time gifts. And you can do both, by the way. You can call up and say, hey, I want that tumbler. Here's my, however much it is. I think they're $100. Yeah, $100. But also, after that, just take $5 out a month for the next, until I tell you to stop, or for the next year or whatever. So here are the premiums that are available to you. With a $20 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV Fight for Democracy sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover, or the nice, good, sturdy tote bag, canvas tote bag that says change never happens from the bottom up. With a $75 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV black hat, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, or the no doubt soon to be a collector's item Quarantine 2020 tumbler. With the $120 gift, you have your choice of the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or the Free Speech TV social distancing kit, or either of my books, The Hidden History of Monopolies or The Hidden History of Oligarchy. Any one of those 4 things for $120. With a $240 gift, we will connect for an hour one afternoon. Typically, we do it Pacific time around 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, something like that. And the next dates are January 13th and February 17th. Get together a small group of people to just hang out and talk about whatever you would like. And some of these conversations have been just really enlightening to me, and I hope to the people on them. And or you can have the Free Speech TV hoodie with a $240 gift, or the Reclaiming Our Democracy book set, which is The Hidden Histories of Oligarchy and Monopoly. With a $360 gift, you can get the tumbler. You can, with a $360 gift. And The Hidden History of Oligarchy, autographed by the author, by the way. All of my books are autographed. The Hidden History of Monopolies, which means you can sell them, for more on eBay. A set of 2 face masks, and the Quarantine 2020 tumbler. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come to Portland and see our beautiful city and hang out with us as we do our show. So those are the premiums. Bottom line, Free Speech TV needs your help. We're trying to raise that, we're trying to hit that goal so that we can unlock Andrew's 10 grand. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Let him know you're watching our show. On this week's Science Revolution, Vien Trong with Tom Steyer's Climate Justice joins the show with a vision for a green, red, and blue climate New Deal. That vision includes Native Americans, a blue New Deal for our threatened oceans, and a green New Deal for our coastal communities. Dr. Michael Greger joins us. Have you gained a few COVID pounds? In his new How Not to Diet cookbook, Dr. Greger tells how you can eat your way to a healthy, sustainable weight with plant-based meals. Terry Mills, president of the National Nursing Network, drops by on why a national professional nurse for public health is important. Plus, Laura Packard, the founder of Healthcare Voices, explains open enrollment under the ACA to help the 16+ million uninsured Americans get themselves enrolled. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever fine podcasts are found. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just a couple of quick data points, and then I'll pick up your phone calls here. The number of Americans who have lost their health coverage since the pandemic began. Excuse me, the number of citizens. The number of citizens who have lost their health care coverage since the pandemic began. In the United Kingdom, 0. In Spain, 0. In South Korea, 0. In Norway, 0. Japan, 0. Italy, 0. Germany, 0. France, 0. Finland, 0. Denmark, 0. Canada, 0. Belgium, 0. Australia, 0. The United States, 14,600,000 people have lost their health care coverage since the beginning of the pandemic, mostly because they lost their jobs. What's wrong with this picture? Number 2, over the weekend, several historic black churches in Washington, D.C. were attacked by neo-Nazis and white racists who were, just having a good old time as the cops stood around and let them get away with it. The Ashbury United Methodist Church, the oldest black church in Washington, D.C., or one of the oldest, it was started at the corner of 11th and K. This is, by the way, 3 blocks from where we used to broadcast our show from. I've walked by that church many times. It's been there since 1836. That church was vandalized by these Nazi racists. Signage was ripped off of it and burned in the street. Senior pastor Reverend Yanther M. Mills said in a statement, "It pained me especially to see our name, Asbury, in flames. For me, it was reminiscent of cross burnings." And the police stood and watched as this happened. And finally, Donald Trump says he's going to veto a military appropriations bill that prevents the withdrawal of American troops from Germany. Now, whose bidding is Donald Trump doing in saying, no, wait a minute, you can't stop me from taking troops out of Germany? I'll leave that to you. I'm guessing you're smart enough to figure that one out. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
So, Tom, not too long ago, you told me that civil wars start when the vacuum of government. And I'm asking you, is not the lack of trust to the degree that we are seeing now in government the beginning of the sucking sound of the vacuum? Aren't we in a cold civil war right now?
We are. We absolutely are, Paul.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to turn into a hot civil war because government can still stop these things. But as long as the official armed arm of our government, the police departments, stand by and watch as black churches are vandalized and their signage is burned in the streets and people are physically attacked while police stand by and watch. That's very troubling and very concerning.
Well, Tom, armed insurgents have plotted against the governor of Michigan and the Secretary of State of Michigan.
I know, but they're in prison
insurgency.
right now. Right.
Yeah, they plotted to kidnap the governor.
If this was a country that was on the verge of civil war, those people would not be in jail right now.
Well,
that's the point.
So my point is this, Tom. Democrats are going to have to take a Promethean approach to this problem. This is a festering boil that needs to be brought to a head before it can be lanced and have the disgusting pus squeezed out of it, which is the Republican Party. And here's what I'm disappointed in. What really makes me upset is that, my idea for repealing the federal income tax, when I suggested this to both Mark Pocan and Congressman Khanna, they both had the exact same reaction. The exact same reaction was they're worried about how this will affect poor people in red states. That's what they're worried about. And you know what, Tom? I don't care about them because they have chosen the government that they have in those states. And as Louis Brandeis once said in the case of 1932, let the states be the crucibles of democracy, the test tubes of democracy. And if we want to have progressive ideas to have some chance of being started, let them happen in the blue states, keeping the money in the blue states. And you know what? Because as I said to Ro Khanna the other day, was all the Republicans want the federal government for is to collect those taxes so that they can turn it over to private hands. And that's what Medicare Advantage is. That's what the charter schools are. They use the arm of government to collect the taxes so that they can shuffle it off into private hands. That's the way they do it. Well, I'm for keeping our tax dollars where they are so that we will take care, the blue states will take care of their poor. If the red states want to be S-hole states, then let them. And there should not be taker states and maker states. And under my plan, there wouldn't be. And we would also not have a bloated federal budget that had $1 trillion a year military because people would start thinking, oh, I really got to pay those taxes. It's not going to be somebody else. I have to pay them. And that's what Democrats, like I said, a Promethean approach, which is daringly and rebelliously creative in addressing this problem.
Paul, as you know, I think that your idea is brilliant. I don't know how practical is not the right word, but you know what I mean. I don't know what the probabilities of it ever being made into law are, but I think it's brilliant.
I know.
And I encourage you to write it up and try to get it published someplace. Submit it to the New York Times as an op-ed. Keep it under 800 words, or any of the other publications. As a starting point, my friend Rob Call runs a website called opednews.com. And it's an entry point for a lot of people. He's got editorial standards and all that, but it's not quite the closed shop that you find in some of the other, kind of Mother Jones kind of high status publications, as it were. And then you get the ball rolling there, and then you take it.
Yeah, 800.
I mean, it took you and me. It took me at least 2 or 3 times of you explaining it to me before I got it. I think that Pocan and Khanna's opposition to it, other than not wanting to be viewed as, just totally out there by their colleagues, I think principally their opposition to your suggestion was that you just said it in such a short form that they didn't have an opportunity to really understand what you were suggesting.
Yeah, I know, but their colleagues, their colleagues in the Senate, Tom, 105 of them just signed on to sedition, so I don't know what out there means anymore, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was 126, and it was in the House.
126.
Yes, I'm completely with you. I'm with you, Paul. I got to move along, but thank you for the call, Rhoda, in Portland, Michigan. Hey, Rhoda, what's up?
Hi, good afternoon, Tom. I totally agree with you that Speaker Pelosi must immediately and publicly denounce the 126 who signed the brief and refuse to seat them in the House, which belongs to the people.
Yeah.
Members of the Democratic
She has
Party.
denounced them, for the record.
Well,
she has said that this is un-American, anti-American. I mean, she's used some strong words, but strong words that are not backed up by strong action simply re-empower Republicans.
Yes, words are wind. Action speaks. And
Yes.
The other thing is members of the Democratic Party. I've been conversing with a lot of them in D.C., everywhere. As you know, I'm in Michigan. Want this. The constant lack of consequence created a monster that's in the White House, created a new GOP. They're just turning off the other cheek. Christ got mad and kicked people out of the synagogue, for God's sake. He yelled at his mom that he has to be about his father's work. So this being overly nice is foolish and destructive. It's destroying the democracy also. Because even babies have consequences. They cry too much, mom puts them in bed, make sure the diaper is wet, make sure the burped, and leave them there to cry.
I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of letting babies cry, but I am completely with you that children that don't have consequences for misbehavior grow up to be bad people. And Republicans who don't have consequences for misbehavior grow up to be traitors.
Of course. So the lack of consequence could and may well cost the DNC the donations, little donations that grew into big ones, and votes in the 2024 election. She should be exposed in their action.
And particularly votes. I mean, you know, it's like
money.
You've got to give somebody, you can't just be, we're opposed to Trump and the crazies. You've got to be, here's what we're for. And the Democratic Party needs to coalesce around a couple of simple organizing principles. And I think they are Medicare for all, free college education and debt forgiveness, and the Green New Deal. Rebuild America in a way that uses less fossil fuels. And I would add to that, Rhoda, to your point, hold the Republicans accountable for the crimes that they are committing. Rhoda, thank you for the call. Thank you so much. We'll be back. It's 45 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, occupying the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And we'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stick around. And welcome back. Jared in Downington, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jared, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. On my vacation for 7 days, just started, and the first treat I get is watching Joe Biden win the election all over again. It's like November 3rd all over again.
There you go.
Did I ever tell you I got really drunk that night, and when Wisconsin flipped to Joe Biden, I had a piece of chocolate cake in my refrigerator waiting, and I ate it at that moment at like 4 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
It was the best
You're
chocolate
a true
cake
Epicurean, Jared.
Definitely. I want to talk about these Republican traitors in the country. I was just recently talking to somebody who was a MAGA cultist, and I've come to the conclusion that these people can't be saved, honestly. They're too far gone at this moment. Like, trying to reason with them is just, you might as well not even bother. We have to...
It's like trying to talk somebody out of their religion, because that's what it's become.
Yeah, I mean, I've argued that Q in a lot of ways is a new religion in a lot of ways. I mean, it's basically a new age religion. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at this point if it becomes a new religion.
Yeah. Well, I would go beyond that. I'd say the entire GOP has become this. You know, yes, that's one of several conspiracy theories that are floating around within the GOP. But you know, the GOP. You know, since really Nixon invited the white racists in, and then Reagan invited the fundamentalist Christians, the televangelists, Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson and those guys in, you know, the Republican Party has been of, by, and for rich people and big corporations, and the people who keep it in power are a bunch of misfits, basically.
Yeah, this isn't the party of Taft or Roosevelt anymore, of the Republican.
Or Dwight Eisenhower.
Yeah, it's the party of the white gun-toting, you know, QAnon conspiracy theorists.
It's the party of George Wallace.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know, which Wallace was a Democrat, and he left the Democrat, and he just, like, you know, the Civil Rights Act infuriated him, made him insane, and he tried to take back the Democratic Party, back to being the fundamentally racist party. He lost, and that was the end of that, you know, and then of course he got shot, and things changed. But and you know, God forbid, it was a terrible thing. But this is nothing new, Jared. This is nothing new. I mean, this is what the Dixiecrats were all about, and they had all their weird conspiracy theories, you know, pre-64, and now it's the GOP. This is a strain of crazy that's been part of America for a long, long time.
But you forgot one key fact about George Wallace. He ran as a third-party candidate in 1968, I believe, 1968 when he got shot. And I think that's what's happening with the GOP. I think there's going to be a huge split between the Trumpists and the other crazy.
I thought he ran in the Democratic primary because Michigan was the only state that sent him, or was that earlier?
American Independent Party. I think that was earlier, yeah.
Okay. All righty. Jared, thank you. We'll be back. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Hey, Thom Hartmann here. I have a new book out. It's called The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, and Ralph Nader wrote the foreword. It's available for pre-order wherever you find fine books. Did you know that there have been 8 federal judges who have been convicted and removed from the federal bench? 15 altogether have been impeached. 8 have been removed from office since, since the beginning. 3 of them since 1988, including one judge, Thomas Porteous down in Louisiana, who was impeached and removed from office for signing false financial declarations under penalty of perjury, which it turns out it looks like Clarence Thomas did for quite a number of years when he did not disclose, as he is required by law to do, that his wife was taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Heritage Foundation. That and his perjury around Anita Hill and others, there were numerous witnesses that didn't even get called, could legitimately spark an impeachment of Clarence Thomas. We got a video about this over at ThomHartmann.com for supporters of our program. Check it out. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Alfredo in Mountain View, California. Hey, Alfredo, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, how are you? Yeah,
good.
It is outrageous to me that, you know, the Congress just passed this, defense budget of $740-something billion, and they never ask how we're going to pay for it. And yet, we don't have money for universal health care. It is just outrageous. Every year they do this. And the other thing that I want to throw out at you is, how is it that these guys in Wisconsin with weapons and arms show up and protest in front of some of the politicians there? These are acts of terrorism. That's not free speech. You know, weapons and guns have no place in a democracy and where people are expressing themselves. And I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Alfredo. You know, you think back to the day, Louise and I have been binge watching The Crown, you know, this TV series on Netflix, and which is a whole nother conversation that I plan on having with you maybe after the first of the year when things settle down a little bit, about monarchy versus democracy. But everybody's smoking back in the 50s, right? My dad got addicted to cigarettes because he was given 2 packs a week, or 2 cartons a week, as I recall, when he joined the Army during World War II, right? And it killed him. I mean, it was one of the things, that and asbestos killed him. So we have, you know, this kind of precedent for these, you know, very, very toxic things, and on it goes. I mean, it's just, well, I'm wandering here into a rant that's kind of a little off topic, so I'll get back to this. John in San Francisco. Hey, John, what's up?
Good morning, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. A couple of things. One is I've been writing Nancy Pelosi for the last few years. She's my congressperson, and I understand she actually reads the postcards. Just send in her simple postcards. She reads it. Mm-hmm. And a couple of my suggestions, I like to take credit for, like the impeachment of Trump. She was waffling on that, and then she went ahead and then paper ballots for the entire U.S. She has nothing to do with it. I give her credit anyway. But I totally agree with Paul from Washington State. These guys are seditionists and so on and you. But fast forward to overnight last night, there was a report on the news about the Russians hacking the Treasury Department this fall. And
yes.
The way it was presented.
And you know what Trump's response was? as Republicans were hacking into the U.S. government? He went golfing.
Russians.
He hasn't said a word. I know.
Russians, not Republicans, Russians.
Oh, did I say Republicans? I meant to say Russians. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Well, my last call was about Xfinity hacking the comments from the newsreaders on media. Every time they said President-elect Joe Biden, they moved out that dialogue. I saw him to do it to Gwen Ifill last week also, but or not Gwen Ifill, the other one, Judy Woodruff. They did it like a 10 years ago to her. But the Russians have hacked the Treasury and one other department. I don't know if it was Health and Human Services.
Think it's Commerce.
Yeah, go ahead.
They think they've hacked the Commerce Department.
They know they've hacked.
Yeah.
It's well, the way it was presented on the news, and I was listening to mass media overnight. It was probably CBS or something, but I was shocked.
Well, what shocked me was the fact that the Trump administration has made no official response whatsoever. Donald
the dereliction of duty
to our country being hacked. Yeah, I think it's treason. Donald Trump's response to a foreign government hacking our government was to go golfing. No comment. Nah, no big deal. Kia in Madison, Wisconsin. Hey, Kia, what's up?
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello? Oh, okay. I think I've solved the problem of these miscreant representatives. If they are not going to be booted, then Speaker Pelosi should insist before they're seated that they take a constitutional law class, college level, and I think Obama would be the perfect instructor for that class.
You just inspired a thought, Kia, as an interim step. How about Nancy Pelosi simply requires the 126 of them to all stand and raise their hand and once again take the oath of office because they've clearly violated their oath of office. In other words, would you repudiate your past actions and once again swear allegiance to the Constitution of the United States? I'm guessing some of them will refuse to do that, and if they do, then they shouldn't be seated. But that might be kind of a softer way to do it. But Kia, I'm with you. I'm with you. I am beyond pissed off at these guys. They are trying to tear down America, American democracy, a democratic republic. They're trying to tear down the idea of democracy, a 3,000-year-old meme. They're trying to tear that down. It doesn't get worse than that. It really doesn't.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. X-Chair, changing the world one seat at a time. More information at xchairtom.com. Bloomsy Box, simply better blooms. More info available at bloomsybox.com, code TOM. And Boll & Branch Sheets, crafted for the common good. More info at bollandbranch.com, code TOM.
those good news, bad news days. Hey, it's Monday. It's the beginning of a brand new week. It's also the beginning of the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraising drive, the pledge drive. And the bad news is that we are only halfway to our goal, and we just finished 2 weeks of this pitch. We have 5 days left. That's the bad news. We've really got to pick this up. The good news is that Andrew from San Diego has said that if we hit our goal for this fundraising drive, he's going to kick in an extra 10 grand. And that means that your donation, as it gets us toward this goal, could help us unlock that extra $10,000 that is a not inconsequential amount of money for Free Speech TV. I mean, what we're trying to raise this week is just an additional $90,000. This network it's not, NBC with 1,000 employees or 10,000 or whatever it is. I think there's about a little fewer than 20 employees at Free Speech TV, and they do everything very carefully, very thoughtfully, very cautiously in terms of costs. Free Speech TV is always just, run like a really, really well-run nonprofit that is very, careful about where the money goes. And on the other hand, has always relied on its listeners, its viewers, you, to keep it on the air. So here we are. We're way behind. I mean, we should be at least 2/3 there, right? Because we're 2/3 of the way through the fundraising drive now. We're only 50%. So we're way behind. And Andrew in San Diego has said, hey, let me dangle this little carrot out here in front of you. So your donations all throughout this week could help unlock that $10,000 from Andrew and help us hit. Well, first we have to hit the $90,000 goal for the week, and then we'd have $100,000 for the week, and we will have hit our goal for this 3-week fundraising drive, which means you get another 3 months of Free Speech TV, and I get to go back to reading book reports. So it's we all win, right? But here we are right now. Anyhow, there's a couple of different ways to give to Free Speech TV. You can either make a monthly recurring donation, which is like a really important. That's the foundational stuff for Free Speech TV. You've probably noticed if you listen to your local NPR affiliate that they have almost entirely moved to this model. They started that, 6-7 years ago, and they've really pushed in that direction, at least here in Oregon and Washington, D.C., where I've heard these pitches. And it's for a good reason. It's the same reason Free Speech TV is doing it, is it gives the organization the ability to predict, to budget. Budgeting is a form of prediction, right? But to predict with some confidence how much revenue they're going to have, because they know how many people have authorized them to say, yes, take $5 a month off my credit card, or $20 a month, or $25 a month, or $30 a month, or whatever it may be. So those kinds of gifts, those monthly recurring gifts, are really important. And so are the one-time gifts. And you can do both, by the way. You can call up and say, hey, I want that tumbler. Here's my, however much it is. I think they're $100. Yeah, $100. But also, after that, just take $5 out a month for the next, until I tell you to stop, or for the next year or whatever. So here are the premiums that are available to you. With a $20 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV Fight for Democracy sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover, or the nice, good, sturdy tote bag, canvas tote bag that says "Change never happens" from the bottom up. With a $75 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV black hat, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, or the no doubt soon to be a collector's item Quarantine 2020 tumbler. With the $120 gift, you have your choice of the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or the Free Speech TV social distancing kit, or either of my books, The Hidden History of Monopolies or The Hidden History of Oligarchy. Any one of those 4 things for $120. With a $240 gift, we will connect for an hour one afternoon. Typically, we do it Pacific time around 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, something like that. And the next dates are January 13th and February 17th. Get together a small group of people to just hang out and talk about whatever you would like. And some of these conversations have been just really enlightening to me, and I hope to the people on them. and with a or you can have the Free Speech TV hoodie with a $240 gift, or the Reclaiming Our Democracy book set, which is the hidden histories of oligarchy and monopoly. With a $360 gift, you can get the tumbler. You can with a $360 gift, and the hidden history of oligarchy, autographed by the author, by the way. All of my books are autographed. The hidden history of monopolies, which means you can sell them, for more on eBay. A set of 2 face masks and the Quarantine 2020 tumbler. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come to Portland and see our beautiful city and hang out with us as we do our show. So those are the premiums. Bottom line, Free Speech TV needs your help. We're trying to raise that, we're trying to hit that goal so that we can unlock Andrew's 10 grand. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Let him know you're watching our show.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. On the line with us is Saru Jayaraman, the president of One Fair Wage, director of the Food Labor Research Center at UC Berkeley. Onefairwage.site is the website. The Twitter handle is Saru Jayaraman, SaruJayaraman, or at One Fair Wage. And Saru, I saw this piece, your report. The title really caught me. Take off your mask so I know how much to tip you. And, it kind of makes us all realize that so much is lost in our communications when we can't see if another person is smiling or frowning or whatever. But this really goes way beyond all that. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It really honestly goes to the ways in which the pandemic has exposed pre-existing conditions in our economy, in our society, and unfortunately pre-existing conditions in the restaurant industry, because prior to the pandemic, the restaurant industry already had the highest rates of sexual harassment of any industry, largely due to the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers, which is a legacy of slavery. 43 states allow restaurants to pay their workers a sub-minimum wage and forcing them to live entirely on tips or mostly on tips. That's a direct legacy of slavery. It's also been a source of sexual harassment for a mostly female industry because it forces women servers to put up with whatever a customer might do to them, however they touch them or treat them or talk to them, because the customer's always right and pays their bills, not their employer. 7 states have done it differently, including California and Oregon and Washington and many other states. They require full minimum wage with tips on top and have 1/2 the rate of sexual harassment because there, women can rely on a wage from their boss and they're not as reliant on the tips. Well, all of that became much worse during the pandemic. And what the report shows, unfortunately, based on 2,000 surveys of workers who've been gone back to work during the pandemic, is that not only have health risks really just become horrific, most of the workers report that they cannot enforce social distancing and mask rules on the very same customers from whom they have to get tips because tips are way down. They report tips are down 50 to 75%. But also 40% of workers are reporting that sexual harassment has gone way up. And hundreds of women submitted comments from male customers saying along the lines of, take off your mask so I can judge how cute you are and therefore determine your tips. Which means that the issue of the sub-minimum wage has gone from an issue of race and gender and economic injustice to become literally a matter of life and death, because if these women are being asked to remove their protective gear for the chance to get a tip so that a male customer can judge their looks and therefore their tip on that basis, it's truly life-threatening.
It also highlights a reality that has been documented many, many times, in the past few decades, that attractiveness, however society defines that, is one of the things that's a huge variable in tips, which should tell us all that tipping is not just supporting whatever you would call that. I think this goes way beyond sexism. It's and misogyny. It's some sort of fundamental flaw at the core of our society. But not only is that real, but it should call for a complete reformation in the way we do this. I lived in Europe for a year. You tip in Europe, but basically your tip is, whatever's the leftover change is. You have a $20 meal and you give, or a $19.60 meal and you give them a €20 bill and they give you back, 41 pennies, basically. You just leave that on the table. It's just the leftover. Because everybody has a decent wage. The tipping is just kind of an incidental thing. Whereas here it's like, well, 10%, 15%, 20%. Why? Because that's how they get paid. But it's at your discretion. And is she cute? I mean, this is nuts.
It's nuts. It's nuts. It's outrageous. It's a reflection of all the biases in our society. And it's a reflection of history. It's so important to know the history because what you experienced in Europe is not an accident. Tipping originated in feudal Europe. It was something that aristocrats and nobles gave to serfs and vassals, but always on top of a wage. When that idea came to the States, it came right before emancipation. And at emancipation, restaurant owners wanted to hire newly freed slaves and not pay them anything and have them live entirely on tips, which was a mutation of the concept of tipping. Tipping was intended, exactly as you said, as just an extra or a bonus. But it became a replacement for wages because of slavery in the United States. And that became law in 1938 as part of the New Deal when everybody got the right to the minimum wage. But tipped workers who were mostly black were left out and told you get a $0 wage as long as tips bring you to the full minimum wage. So we went from zero in 1938 all the way to $2.13 an hour, which is the absurd and ridiculous minimum wage for tipped workers in the United States of America in 2020. And today you've got, it's the nation's second largest workforce. This is not a tiny workforce of people living on this sub-minimum wage. This is almost 14 million workers. And during the pandemic, that absurd and ridiculous sub-minimum wage has wreaked complete havoc. 60% of these workers couldn't get unemployment insurance because most states told them that their wages were too low to meet the minimum threshold to qualify for benefits. And after months of not getting benefits, they go back to work. And they're going back to work for a sub-minimum wage, and tips are way down. And so they're being asked to do a lot more for way less. Less tips, more responsibility, more harassment, more hostility. And you're right. This report, this research obliterates the idea that tipping was ever correlated with the quality of the service. So you're right. There's years of data, reams of data that show that, in fact, tipping is directly correlated with all American biases, the race of the server, the gender of the server, whether she'll touch you or not or allow herself to be touched. We already knew these things, but this data proves, if it were truly based on the quality of her service, why would you need her to pull down her mask and therefore expose herself to the virus and see her face in order to tip her? It really is a system, as you said, that needs to go. And instead, we need to pay these workers a full minimum wage and let tips be on top as an extra, as they were always intended to be.
Yeah, this also highlights another absurdity and structural inequity in our whole tipping system in the United States. I had dinner with the prince of a small country in Europe in a really fancy restaurant in Holland, in Amsterdam a few years back. And, when he paid for dinner, he left it was like a $400 dinner. He left a tip of about $2. And, which was not unusual, right? It was just kind of in that context. Here in the United States, if you're lucky enough to get a job in a restaurant where your average check is $100 or $200, and there are, such restaurants in every town, and you're paid 10% or 20% of the tip, you make a lot of money. On the other hand, if you're working at, a restaurant that serves, average working class people where the check might be $12 or $16, you're making squat. And everybody should simply make a wage as a server. The wage can have a sliding scale associated with it, but there needs to be a bottom, that is the minimum wage at the very least. Obviously, the minimum wage needs to go up to $15 an hour, but this is another piece of it too.
That's right. Listen, I think servers who are listening would tell you $15 is not enough to live on anywhere in this country right now, and we need tips on top of that unless we're getting to a point where we're talking about much higher wages. But absolutely, workers need a base wage that they can count on, and tips should not be part of that base wage. They should be on top of that base wage. And believe it or not, a lot of even restaurant owners during the pandemic have come around to this idea. They've expressed new support. We just need legislators to listen and follow.
Well, we need to reestablish our cultural norms, like they have in Europe, and in order to make this happen, this is a big job. Saru Jayaraman, president of One Fair Wage, onefairwage.site is the website, and director of the Food Labor Research Center. Thank you, Saru. Thank you for dropping by.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Take care.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be right back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. It's 15 minutes past the hour. And welcome back. Randall in Oceanside, California. Hey, Randall, what's on your mind?
Well, Tom, I tell you, you're on my mind right now. Can you hear me?
I am listening.
Hello? Oh, okay. That thing that you said about letting these people, the 126, go basically scot-free to renounce what they did is totally absurd. We have to have accountability. These people knew what they were doing when they took their stand. They knew the consequences when they took their stand. If not, they should have. And therefore, we cannot have a kumbaya moment. We have to hold these people accountable, period. They should not be seated, period.
I agree, but Nancy Pelosi's already said that ain't going to happen. So at least we should solicit an admission of guilt and apology from them.
No.
At the very least.
No.
Yeah. Well, okay. Take that position, Randall. But as long as Nancy Pelosi is saying no, I mean, this is. I am with you, and this is the reason why I think we should all be tweeting at Nancy Pelosi and emailing Nancy Pelosi. And I got a fundraising request, in fact, from Nancy Pelosi for Georgia yesterday, and I replied with a comment to the effect of, come back and ask me for money when you've refused to seat 126 Republicans. I'm sure nobody ever saw it, though, and I gave some money to the thing anyway. But, Randall, I get it. I totally get it. I can't disagree with you. Steve in Lake Elsinore, California. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom, longtime listener and first-time caller. Today, 221 years ago, George Washington died, and he was vehemently opposed to partisanship, and he would be, I'm sure, very embarrassed by what the Republicans have done with this 126 vote. And so I just wanted to get a comment from you, what do you think Washington would have thought about, especially since the two acts of violence occurred in Washington State and Washington, D.C.? And, I'm like you. I believe that there maybe is a cold civil war, beginning. So anyway,
we had a shooting in Olympia, Washington, in the state capitol, and we had 4 stabbings and the burning of part of a black church in Washington, D.C. I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah, and what would he have thought? And just a terrible thought. And by the way, yesterday on Susie Weissman's show, Beneath the Surface, she had a brilliant interview with her brother, Irving Weissman of Stanford, about the coronavirus, how the vaccine works, and the relationship between government and medicine. I tell you, it's what your listeners would really find it valuable to look it up in their archives. So, and one last thing, the NPR mentioned a RAND report last week. It was sponsored by a billionaire, talking about wealth disparity and how Reaganomics has contributed to everybody in America worth about 50% of what they should be. So it's something you might want to look up and, again, maybe make a comment about later on.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check that out, Steve. By the way, with regard to George Washington, you're absolutely right that prior to his becoming president, he was totally supportive of Madison's rant in Federalist Number 10, about the danger of factions. To his dying days, Washington was an opponent of what he referred to as factions. But factions back in that day were identified as groups whose interest was adverse to the Republic. and not just political parties. Because Washington himself became a Federalist and openly opposed Jefferson's Democratic Republicans, although that was after he was out of the White House. But just to add a little nuance to your comment. Steve, thanks for the call. It's 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be in a few seconds. Stick around. The Hartmann Report is a free daily podcast, 7 days a week, and you can find our entire 3-hour podcast over at thomhartmann.com. So John Kasich was recently on CNN talking about how Democrats need to be listening to rural America. And welcome back. 20 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you, and a few other newsworthy things that I wanted to point out to you. We are going to be talking to Alex Lawson, I believe, at the bottom of this hour. Let me just double check. Yeah. So in a few minutes, Alex Lawson will be with us. But remember when Chris Krebs was fired? Donald Trump fired this. He was in charge of cybersecurity, keeping us from being hacked by foreign governments. Donald Trump fires him, and then what happens? We get hacked by a foreign government. Meanwhile, Louise and I tuned into Fox News this morning because everybody was just doing stories about, hey, look at people are getting virus vaccines. And it was like after the first 5 minutes, it was like, okay, I know that. And so let's check out Fox News. And what were they talking about? Hunter Biden. Oh, Hunter Biden. Hey, looks like he made some money in China. Ivanka Trump and her husband just bought a 184-acre plot of land on a private 29-resident island in Miami, off the coast of Miami, for $30 million. They made $36 million last year while they were working for the government. Ivanka Trump is under investigation right now for stealing money or redirecting money or rerouting money from the Trump Inaugural Fund into the family business, which she profited from. I mean, yeah, look into Hunter Biden. No problem. But let's keep looking into Ivanka as well, and Jared. These grifters, in particular, because it looks like she's planning on primary challenging Marco Rubio in a year. And that's going to get interesting as they move to Florida. Stella in Houston, Texas. Hey, Stella, what's on your mind today? Stella, you are on the air.
I'm here, Tom. I'm calling in response to the call from Paul about doing away with federal income taxes in the red states. And the problem with that, and I was even more surprised that you agreed with him. Pardon me?
He meant in all states. And his point was that, if you're paying a total of 25% income taxes right now, combined state and federal, most of that is federal tax. Just, stop that being a federal tax and make it entirely a state tax. You're still paying 25%. But then the state has to send money to the federal government to pay for the defense budget. The state has to send money to the federal government to pay for, the $2.41 that Kentucky gets for every dollar that they send to D.C. right now. It would end red state welfare. And Texas, the state where you live, Stella, would have to impose an income tax on its citizens, which you don't have right now.
Okay, well, I didn't. That's not what I heard from him. And now that you said what you said, it makes more sense. But what I was going to say about that was, he said that he didn't care about the poor people in the red states, and that because they chose their government. Well, not all of us did. You said okay. Well, that makes me feel a lot better, Tom. And by the way, I wanted to say that I'm a longtime listener, and this is the first time I've called, so I enjoy your show.
Well, thank you, Stella. Yeah, no, I think that, first of all, I don't think that this would punish low-income people in red states. What it would do is it would force red states to start behaving responsibly. Most of the red states in the United States are basically living on the dole. They're taking enormous amounts of federal money And they're using that to, and you know, with in particular food stamps and Medicare or Medicaid rather, they're using that. They're using federal dollars to subsidize poverty in their states, and they're keeping that poverty in place using those federal subsidies. If that money had to come from the taxpayers of the states themselves, I think that the individual states might start getting very serious about doing the right thing. For example, single-payer health care. If you've got, you know, if Texas had to pay, if Texas was, you know, if all of the tax revenues, if all of the costs of Medicare, Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, all those expenses in Texas that are right now being paid with federal dollars, if they had to come out of Texas taxpayers, I think that there would be a real strong incentive in Texas to put in a single-payer system because it'll save them 20% right off the top, and you know, and cover everybody in the state. It would be a strong encouragement to more responsible behavior. Again, I think it's pie in the sky, you know, but I think Paul is brilliant for having come up with it, and it should be the beginning, maybe the opening salvo in an effort to stop these red state welfare, you know, routines where Mitch McConnell shovels $2.41 into Kentucky for every dollar they send to D.C. I don't know what it is in Texas, frankly, but you know, so and that's, they're not unique, by the, you know, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, all of these states are getting a whole lot more from all the rest of us in the blue states, and there's a couple red states that are maker states, but most of them are taker states than the rest of them are. So.
Well, I don't know who that money is going to. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I don't know
go for it.
Who's receiving the money here in Texas, but it's not the poor people, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing.
Getting it.
If everybody in Texas was paying a substantial state income tax, then suddenly the Texas legislature becomes something that people pay attention to. And your local politicians get held accountable. I think one of the biggest crimes in America, political crimes in America, is the stuff that goes on in state houses that people don't even know about because they're not paying attention. You know, everybody knows who their senator is, their U.S. senator. They have no idea who their state senator is, and they don't know who their state representative is. And those people are passing laws and doing things that you know, are fouling the water and are, you know, just all kinds of stuff. Stella, thank you for the call. It's great to hear from you. I hope you call again. I got to run, though. Thank you very much. Yep, thank you. It's coming up on 28 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, exposing the con in conservative. We'll be back. Alex Lawson is going to drop by from Social Security Works. This will be an interesting conversation. Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Speaking the truth, the multinational corporations and billionaires would really rather you didn't know all about. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. It's one of those good news, bad news days. Hey, it's Monday. It's the beginning of a brand new week. It's also the beginning of the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraising drive, the pledge drive. And the bad news is that we are only halfway to our goal, and we just finished 2 weeks of this pitch. We have 5 days left. That's the bad news. We've really got to pick this up. The good news is that Andrew from San Diego has said that if we hit our goal for this fundraising drive, he's going to kick in an extra 10 grand. And that means that your donation, as it gets us toward this goal, could help us unlock that extra $10,000 that is a not inconsequential amount of money for Free Speech TV. I mean, what we're trying to raise this week is just an additional $90,000. This network is it's not, you know, NBC with 1,000 employees or 10,000 or whatever it is. I think there's about a little fewer than 20 employees at Free Speech TV, and they do everything very carefully, very thoughtfully, very cautiously in terms of costs. Free Speech TV is always just, run like a really, really well-run nonprofit that is very, careful about where the money goes. And on the other hand, has always relied on its listeners, its viewers, you, to keep it on the air. So here we are. We're way behind. I mean, we should be at least 2/3 there, right? Because we're 2/3 of the way through the fundraising drive now. We're only 50%. So we're way behind. And Andrew in San Diego has said, hey, let me dangle this little carrot out here in front of you. So your donations all throughout this week could help unlock that $10,000 from Andrew and help us hit, well, first we have to hit the $90,000 goal for the week. And then, we'd have $100,000 for the week. And we will have hit our goal for this 3-week fundraising drive, which means you get another 3 months of Free Speech TV, and I get to go back to reading book reports. So it's, we all win, right? But here we are right now. Anyhow, there's a couple of different ways to give to Free Speech TV. You can either make a monthly recurring donation, which is like a really important. That's the foundational stuff for Free Speech TV. You've probably noticed if you listen to your local NPR affiliate that they have almost entirely moved to this model. They started that, 6-7 years ago, and they've really pushed in that direction, at least here in Oregon and Washington, D.C., where I've heard these pitches. And it's for a good reason. It's the same reason Free Speech TV is doing it, is it gives the organization the ability to predict, to budget. Budgeting is a form of prediction, right? But to predict with some confidence how much revenue they're going to have, because they know how many people have authorized them to say, yes, take $5 a month off my credit card, or $20 a month, or $25 a month, or $30 a month, or whatever it may be. So those kinds of gifts, those monthly recurring gifts, are really important. And so are the one-time gifts. And you can do both, by the way. You can call up and say, hey, I want that tumbler. Here's my, however much it is. I think they're $100. Yeah, $100. But also, after that, just take $5 out a month for the next, until I tell you to stop, or for the next year or whatever. So here are the premiums that are available to you. With a $20 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV Fight for Democracy sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover, or the nice, good, sturdy tote bag, canvas tote bag that says change never happens from the bottom up. With a $75 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV black hat, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, or the no doubt soon to be a collector's item Quarantine 2020 tumbler. With the $120 gift, you have your choice of the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or the Free Speech TV social distancing kit, or either of my books, The Hidden History of Monopolies or The Hidden History of Oligarchy. Any one of those 4 things for $120. With a $240 gift, we will connect for an hour one afternoon. Typically, we do it Pacific time around 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, something like that. And the next dates are January 13th and February 17th. Get together a small group of people to just hang out and talk about whatever you would like. And some of these conversations have been just really enlightening to me, and I hope to the people on them. And or you can have the Free Speech TV hoodie with a $240 gift, or the Reclaiming Our Democracy book set, which is The Hidden Histories of Oligarchy and Monopoly. With a $360 gift, you can get the tumbler. You can, with a $360 gift, and The Hidden History of Oligarchy, autographed by the author, by the way. All of my books are autographed. The Hidden History of Monopolies, which means you can sell them, for more on eBay. A set of 2 face masks, and the Quarantine 2020 tumbler. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come to Portland and see our beautiful city and hang out with us as we do our show. So those are the premiums. Bottom line, Free Speech TV needs your help. We're trying to raise that, we're trying to hit that goal so that we can unlock Andrew's 10 grand. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Let him know you're watching our show. Hey, did you know that Hillary Clinton actually won Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Florida in the 2016 election? It's on page 92 of my new book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting. Hey, we have a new video for supporters of our program over at thomhartmann.com. It's about curing type 1 diabetes, which is a pretty amazing thing. Type 1 diabetes is where the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin are actually destroyed. They're gone. Type 1 diabetics, typically it shows up in childhood, and without insulin, people die from it fairly young. With insulin, they can live a good long life, but a University of Alberta researcher, Dr. James Shapiro, back in 1990 pioneered a transplant system. Now, the problem with that was that people had to use immunosuppressive drugs for the rest of their lives because they had just gotten, a partial pancreas transplant from another person. But now he's successfully on mice worked out a way of actually curing type 1 diabetes. We can't do it legally here in the United States, but they're doing it in Canada. It's amazing. You can check it out at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Let's check in with our old buddy Alex Lawson. Alex is the executive director of Social Security Works, socialsecurityworks.org, and strengthensocialsecurity.org. His personal Twitter handle is ALaw202 or SSWorks. And Alex, welcome back. I understand that Donald Trump has launched a last-minute attack on Social Security. Tell us about it.
Yeah, as you know, Tom, he's been attacking Social Security the entire time he's in office, but he really has accelerated it, got his wrecking crew on their way out the door to try to ram through a bunch of rules. And the way the process works is if they can get them through, you can't just turn them right off in a new administration. It actually takes, there's a process necessary. So these are bad attacks on Social Security. One of them, just in a couple days, the rule is gonna go through. It replaces the administrative law judge, who are independent judges that look at casework and make a determination with basically political people. And so you could see someone like Donald Trump in the future saying, deny all cases, and these political people with no independence would do that. It's really undermining a core part of Social Security. And then there is the continuing disability review, which we've spoken about on your show before. The CDR, when Reagan put it in, it led directly to tens of thousands of deaths. And it basically rips people's Social Security benefits that they've already qualified for, their disability benefits, away from them. And they are doing everything they can to get this in before the 20th. We are doing everything we can to legally stretch that into the next administration because it's easier to stop the train than to reverse it and send it another direction. But I'll just sort of end with this one. None of it, we won't be able to do anything if the incoming Biden administration does not clean house at Social Security Administration. On day one, we need to fire, ask for the resignations, get rid of Andrew Saul, the commissioner, David Black, the deputy commissioner, and their henchman who's actually driving this, Mark Wachowski, who is the sort of the vision. He's the guy who has the vision to do this stuff on the way out the door. It's critical that the Biden administration understand that if they don't get rid of these guys, even under a new administration, all of these rules will actually be implemented, and all of our work delaying it will have been for naught if he doesn't clean house on day one at the Social Security Administration.
And let's make it very clear, this is not evil Donald Trump. This is the Republican Party institutionally, top to bottom, since 1935, has hated Social Security, has done everything they can to kneecap Social Security. Republicans used to give at least lip service. I mean, Eisenhower gave lip service to Social Security and didn't actually try to destroy it. But I think he was the only Republican president in the 20th century that's true of. Every other Republican president has done everything they can to damage Social Security. And Americans need to realize this. They need to understand this. And Americans who are under 65 need to realize that what you're talking about right now, Alex, is not the retirement benefit. It's not the stuff for old folks. And this is what happened. This is a program that if you're 25 years old and you get in a car accident and you're paralyzed for the rest of your life, this is what's going to keep you alive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also, we know how this works, Tom. If they can destroy one part of Social Security, it's not like they stop. They are hell-bent, as you said, the entire Republican Party. There are no good actors on Social Security, and they will not stop until they've dismantled the whole thing. And again, people who are receiving it now, they're attacking people who are current beneficiaries' benefits, but most of these attacks are actually going to impact younger folks most of all. And the shift of what people have paid in versus what the Republicans want to allow out the door, which is nothing if they got their way, but as little as possible. That's aimed at younger people, and younger people should understand that the younger you are, the bigger the cuts to your benefits that you've been paying for are going to be if we don't turn this entirely around and we let people. I want to just do a little history lesson. I know your listeners know this, Tom, but remember, Barack Obama did not actually get rid of George W. Bush's Social Security commissioner. Bush's commissioner was in for the majority of Barack Obama's 8 years in office, and Barack Obama never appointed his own Social Security commissioner. So, in fact, Republicans have controlled the Social Security Administration basically unchecked in modern times until you go all the way back to Bob Ball. So this is a huge deal, and we're sort of in the end game of that decades-long assault. We need Biden to do the exact opposite of what Barack Obama did, and to clean house on day one, and to get people in there who understand the importance of Social Security to everyone today and to the future. And you look around at what's going on right now with COVID, with employment, and Social Security is going to be more important in the future than it even is right now, and it's critical right now.
There's going to be millions of young people who are going to be permanently disabled by COVID. We've got, dementia, heart damage, lung damage, kidney damage that is not reversible from all indications. And these are the people, this is the next generation that's going to be on Social Security disability. And it's really hitting hard people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s right now. And the last thing, Alex, that I'd like you to riff on a little bit if you're up for it, is why the Republicans hate this. There is one contingent within the Republican Party, you could call it the Koch brothers wing, that just thinks government doing anything other than running the police is socialism. And they are just opposed to socialism because socialism is funded by taxes on rich people, number one. But then there's a larger chunk within the Republican Party who are taking piles of money, and many in the Democratic Party as well, by the way, who are taking piles of money from private insurance companies who want to be the ones who are providing Social Security disability insurance. They want to be, if you get disabled, they want to be the ones who are taking your premium dollars. And then there are also a whole bunch of banksters who, and Pete Peterson was leading the charge on this for years and years. He's dead now, but his institute lives on, who are saying Social Security is a program that should be administered by, Chase and Bank of America. Your turn, Alex.
Yeah, I think, it's hard to build on that, but I will try. The one of the questions is how real that first part is, right? Like, do the Koch brothers have an ideology, or is it just greed? And I lean towards, they have ideologues who work for them, but these are two people addicted to money. It's greed. They're the same as the Wall Street billionaires. Yeah. They are. Yes. The Koch brothers as an institution, I would say, is the same as Pete Peterson as an institution. They make great common cause in picking our pockets, in stealing our money. The very rich in this country really only have one industry, which is putting their hands in our pockets and taking our money. They do it in a variety of fashions, right? The Waltons pay poverty wages so that employees of Walmart are getting taxpayer-funded benefits. But this upward redistribution of wealth, in my view, Tom, is what it's all about. You have these plutocrats who understand that Social Security is the largest edifice that we have built as the people together against those plutocrats. And so they will do everything they can to destroy it.
Yeah, amen. Alex Lawson, SocialSecurityWorks.org, StrengthenSocialSecurity.org, ALaw202, and SSWorks are the Twitter handles. Alex, always great talking with you, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tom.
We'll be back. It's 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And we'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. Stick around. And welcome back. Steve in Topanga, California. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I just wanted to say I agree with your rant today. And Paul, I liked his ideas. And, you know, I had the thing I was thinking about the Democrats and how to change things a little bit. And my older brother I tried to reason with him for years. He listened to Rush Limbaugh and all that kind of stuff. And there was no way I could get through. I spent years doing it. And my observation is that we need actions, not words. We're not going to change these right-wing, racist, white supremacists with words. But when they get a better job, or they get Medicare, or Social Security, or something that changes their life through actions, then they can maybe step out of the cloud of the cult. I think Democrats should be a little more bold, step out of their comfort zone, because if they don't, I believe the Republicans will go anywhere. They'll go Machiavellian. And one more point, as far as Australia, when you're in Australia, you work at McDonald's, you get a living wage, and you're working towards a pension, and there's hardly any tips there. I mean, tips, leave a tip, and people are surprised. So it's a lot different.
Just like Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. It's. I mean, we can change things. But I think we need to take some bold actions rather than trying to talk our way or, with logic and reason, because it's just not working. Didn't work on my brother.
I agree.
I agree. Anyway,
this is why these 126 members of Congress should not be seated, and it's why we need to start working immediately on Medicare for all, ending medical debt and educational debt, free college education, at least in public schools, for anybody who qualifies in the United States. And rebuilding this country with brand new infrastructure that is nowhere near as fossil fuel intensive as the existing infrastructure. I mean, this is not rocket science, and it makes me crazy that there are even Democrats who behave like it is. Steve, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Don in Kingman, Arizona. Hey, Don, what's up?
Hey, Tom, long-time listener, just signed up for a continuing contribution. I was channel surfing
to Free Speech TV. Thank you.
Yeah, what? Oh, sure. Excuse me. I was channel surfing this morning, just flicking along, and I went past one, but I heard something, and I went back, and it was Alex Jones. Now, I don't watch any of that stuff. I mean, it just infuriates me more than I need. But he was urging his listeners to tell all their friends that if Joe Biden is sworn in, that they should throw him out. He should be thrown out of office. Now,
that's sedition.
It's sedition, exactly. And that goes along with there's no action being taken against this. And he's not the only one that's doing this. Conservative blowhards are doing it all the time. And I also heard mention about not living up to their oath of office. A lot of these Congress people, and I'm curious about what it takes to repeal their their seat. You know, how hard is
it takes the Speaker of the House. It takes Nancy Pelosi. It takes leadership. It takes Nancy Pelosi. She's going to have to take names and kick ass, and she's not. She so far has indicated she's not inclined to, and that's why I think that we need to press her to do so. Don, thank you for the call. We'll be right back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. You can help America return to democracy by telling friends and family how to listen to this and other great progressive programs. Tag You're It. Did you know that 100 police officers, and the last year we have statistics for is 2017, so we'll use that. 100 police officers were killed by firearms during that year. Now, some were suicides, some were accidental shootings. A few of them were bad guys killing cops. 100. 1,000 of our soldiers all around the world were shot dead in 2017. 1,000. A little more dangerous, apparently, to be a soldier than to be a cop. But apparently, the most dangerous position in the United States is not being a police officer on the front lines. It's not being a soldier on the front lines of combat. It's being a child. School-aged children killed by firearms in 2017, 2,462 of them. We have a new video up over at thomhartmann.com about this situation and what we can do about it. You can check it out there. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Did you see this thing about Jill Biden and the Wall Street Journal? This guy this editorial writer in the Wall Street Journal. He's not a staffer. He's in fact he has an honorary degree. Right? I have an honorary PhD from a real college, from Goddard College, but I don't call myself Dr. Hartmann. This guy has an honorary degree, and he writes an op-ed saying that Dr. Jill Biden, who has a PhD and 2 master's degrees, and they're all real, they're not honorary degrees, that she shouldn't call herself doctor. And he calls her kiddo. Like, I'm a man and you're a woman, kiddo. I mean, it's just bizarre. And I canceled my subscription to the Wall Street Journal. I signed up for it a year or two ago thinking that, as the host of a national program, I should read the Wall Street Journal. I've found very little content in it of any value to me, and the editorial pages do nothing but piss me off. And so this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I just said, that's it. I canceled my subscription. And I tweeted, I'm looking forward to Dr. Jill Biden and her husband occupying the White House. But to that point, John Aravosa's tweets, and it's like, yeah, he says, we spent 4 years ignoring the fact that Melania Trump posed nude, rather salaciously, in fact, and I would add on multiple occasions, while Biden isn't even president yet, and they're going after his wife for being too educated. What is it about Republican men? Right? If a woman is posing nude, and there's all kinds of nudie pictures of Melania all over the web. I mean, this is what she used to do for a living. She was a model, and pushed it like this. And Trump seems to have been very proud of it. They're down with that. That's cool. Yeah, that's the appropriate role for a woman. Just be a sex object. But a woman having a PhD and 2 master's degrees, they should not have, they should not be just calling themselves doctors. Sheila in Talent, Oregon. Hey, Sheila, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Tom. Listen, this morning one of your phone callers and then something you said afterwards got me into a little action. So for other people who would like to do the same, because I am pissed off about the 126 seditious Republicans in the House. So I have asked her, since they will be seated probably, and there's apparently not going to be a sanction, that when they go into sessions, that she asks those 126 to stand to apologize to the people for the breaking of their oath of office and for their breaking of faith with the people, and that they apologize. And then they raise their hand and they retake the oath. She readminister the oath of office. And if they refuse to do that, that they are forced out of the House for at least the duration of that day. I want it on C-SPAN and national news. I want to see their faces. I want to see their names. I am so angry that they could not let me in a federal building because I think I'd go ballistic. And so anyway, I would like to thank you for that idea that they have to that she readminister the oath of office. She can make them stand up. Do they follow the rules of the House or they get out? And at least for the day, I know they have to be voted out of office. But there are still some things she can do as the speaker. And if people want to do the same, they can email her. Go to speaker.gov. Don't just do Nancy Pelosi, because if you go in as a California representative, you won't be able to contact her that way, and it won't be going to the speaker's box, so to say.
Right.
And while they're at it, they might just as well do what I'm doing with McTurtle. And it's that crazy commercial that does a Wagner aria, "It's our money and we need it now." Well, the people need to say that too. In my family, I've got some people who may be going hungry and homeless very soon. Again, I'm just so angry. I can't even. Anyway, thank you.
I'm with you. If we can't sanction them, at the very least, we should name and shame them. Sheila, thank you. Thank you. Brilliant. Mark in Mokina, Illinois. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Yeah, Mokina. I was just responding to losing Social Security. If I lose my disability, I'll lose my Medicare. If I lose my Medicare, I'm going to have to divorce my wife just to go on Medicaid. It's something we've been talking about already. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
This is what the GOP wants for you, Mark.
The family-friendly GOP, yes.
They're not family-friendly. They have pretended that for years and years. What they are friendly to is the idea that the man is the head of the household and the woman is barefoot and pregnant. They call that family-friendly.
My wife's actually the head of the household here.
Yeah. Well, the Republicans would probably be a little nervous about that because they just don't know what to do about that. It's just it is bizarre. I mean, misogyny is their name, but also poverty for all the rest of us and riches for their billionaire buddies and funders is their name too. Mark, thank you for the call. We'll be back on the other side of this break. We're going to spend the entire hour talking with one of the folks who's a real mover and shaker, a lawyer and director of democracy policy for the group Indivisible, indivisible.org, and Megan Hatcher Mays. So stick around. It's going to get interesting.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro, phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. X-Chair, changing the world one seat at a time. More information at xchairtom.com. Bloomsy Box, simply better blooms. More info available at bloomsybox.com, code TOM. And Boll & Branch Sheets, crafted for the common good. More info at bollandbranch.com, code TOM.
We say
It's one of those good news, bad news days. Hey, it's Monday. It's the beginning of a brand new week. It's also the beginning of the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraising drive, the pledge drive. And the bad news is that we are only halfway to our goal, and we just finished 2 weeks of this pitch. We have 5 days left. That's the bad news. We've really got to pick this up. The good news is that Andrew from San Diego has said that if we hit our goal for this fundraising drive, he's going to kick in an extra 10 grand. And that means that your donation, as it gets us toward this goal, could help us unlock that extra $10,000 that is a not inconsequential amount of money for Free Speech TV. I mean, what we're trying to raise this week is just an additional $90,000. This network it's not, NBC with 1,000 employees or 10,000 or whatever it is. I think there's about a little fewer than 20 employees at Free Speech TV, and they do everything very carefully, very thoughtfully, very cautiously in terms of costs. Free Speech TV is always just, run like a really, really well-run nonprofit that is very, careful about where the money goes. And on the other hand, has always relied on its listeners, its viewers, you, to keep it on the air. So here we are. We're way behind. I mean, we should be at least 2/3 there, right? Because we're 2/3 of the way through the fundraising drive now. We're only 50%. So we're way behind. And Andrew in San Diego has said, hey, let me dangle this little carrot out here in front of you. So your donations all throughout this week could help unlock that $10,000 from Andrew and help us hit. Well, first we have to hit the $90,000 goal for the week, and then we'd have $100,000 for the week, and we will have hit our goal for this 3-week fundraising drive, which means you get another 3 months of Free Speech TV, and I get to go back to reading book reports. So it's we all win, right? But here we are right now. Anyhow, there's a couple of different ways to give to Free Speech TV. You can either make a monthly recurring donation, which is like a really important. That's the foundational stuff for Free Speech TV. You probably noticed if you listen to your local NPR affiliate that they have almost entirely moved to this model. They started that, 6-7 years ago, and they've really pushed in that direction, at least here in Oregon and Washington, D.C., where I've heard these pitches. And it's for a good reason. It's the same reason Free Speech TV is doing it, is it gives the organization the ability to predict, to budget. Budgeting is a form of prediction, right? But to predict with some confidence how much revenue they're going to have, because they know how many people have authorized them to say, yes, take $5 a month off my credit card, or $20 a month, or $25 a month, or $30 a month, or whatever it may be. So those kinds of gifts, those monthly recurring gifts, are really important. And so are the one-time gifts. And you can do both, by the way. You can call up and say, hey, I want that tumbler. Here's my, however much it is. I think they're $100. Yeah, $100. But also, after that, just take $5 out a month for the next, until I tell you to stop, or for the next year or whatever. So here are the premiums that are available to you. With a $20 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV Fight for Democracy sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover, or the nice, good, sturdy tote bag, canvas tote bag that says change never happens from the bottom up. With a $75 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV black hat, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, or the no doubt soon to be a collector's item Quarantine 2020 tumbler. With the $120 gift, you have your choice of the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or the Free Speech TV social distancing kit, or either of my books, The Hidden History of Monopolies or The Hidden History of Oligarchy. Any one of those 4 things for $120. With a $240 gift, we will connect for an hour, one afternoon. Typically, we do it Pacific time around 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, something like that. And the next dates are January 13th and February 17th. Get together a small group of people to just hang out and talk about whatever you would like. And some of these conversations have been just really enlightening to me, and I hope to the people on them. and with a or you can have the Free Speech TV hoodie with a $240 gift, or the Reclaiming Our Democracy book set, which is the hidden histories of oligarchy and monopoly. With a $360 gift, you can get the tumbler. You can with a $360 gift, and the hidden history of oligarchy, autographed by the author, by the way. All of my books are autographed. The hidden history of monopolies, which means you can sell them, for more on eBay. A set of 2 face masks and the Quarantine 2020 tumbler, and with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come to Portland and see our beautiful city and hang out with us as we do our show. So those are the premiums. Bottom line, Free Speech TV needs your help. We're trying to raise that, we're trying to hit that goal so that we can unlock Andrew's 10 grand. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Let him know you're watching our show.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. I'd like to do a deep dive into democracy, democratic processes, what the founders referred to as Republican government, if you prefer, with somebody who I have tremendous respect for, Megan Hatcher Mays, the lawyer and director of democracy policy for indivisible.org, one of the premier pro-democracy progressive organizations in the United States. Her Twitter handle is Important Megan, MEAGAN, or @Indivisible_team. And Megan, welcome back. Before we really dig into things, can you, for people who might not be familiar with Indivisible, you want to give us a quick overview of where you all came from, what you've been up to, and where you see yourselves going?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Tom. I'm really thrilled to be back. And today's a, sort of wonderful day in history because today's actually Indivisible's 4th birthday. It was 4 years ago today that our co-founders just kind of wrote a Google Doc, after Trump was elected about how the best ways to, lobby your member of Congress, to actually talk to your member of Congress. I think a lot of us on the left maybe took for granted that, the government just kind of works the way that it's supposed to work. I don't know that a lot of us took meetings with our members of Congress before Donald Trump. And I think what Indivisible did was say, this is going to be really critical over the next 4 years to make sure that Democrats and Republicans alike know that we're paying attention kind of more so than ever before. And that's what we've done over the last 4 years. So happy birthday to us. And now we find ourselves in kind of an interesting situation where instead of playing so much defense like we did under Trump, we're going to be playing a little bit of offense. Since we won back the White House, we kept the House of Representatives, although it remains to be seen what will happen in the Georgia runoff, although we're keeping our fingers crossed for a Senate majority too. But that means that we're going to actually be able to have the chance not just to defend our institutions from the likes of Donald Trump, but actually improve them on offense, proactively and affirmatively. Try to make things better in a Biden administration.
Yeah, step by step, and there's so much. I mean, there's so much damage that needs to be undone, and then there's so much kind of institutional inertia that needs to be overcome to get things going again. But speaking to the history of Indivisible, when your organization started 4 years ago today, it was, as you point out with that Google document, I remember it well. And it was, a bunch of people who are inside the Obama administration and inside Democratic politics who were saying, here's how elections get won. Here's how you make things happen in American politics. And some of it was, very new to a lot of people. Some of it might have even been counterintuitive. And some of it caused us to set aside some things that we had been doing that hadn't worked as well in favor of things that did work as well. You want to go through those, recap those? I mean, what is it? What are the factors that win and lose elections? And how might those factors be different for Democrats and progressives as opposed to Republicans and conservatives? I guess that's kind of two separate questions there. But
yeah, so I think for Yeah, so I think for Democrats and progressives, I think right now we've got a lot of folks in leadership who kind of like came of age in politics after Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan. And so we've got sort of like an old school line of thinking where it's like, well, we should try to be as uncontroversial as possible. Like we should try to keep our ideas pretty mainstream and pretty low key so that nobody freaks out and thinks we're doing anything too progressive. That doesn't actually motivate voters, as it turns out. Mostly people who are centrists do not win. Bill Clinton won. He had the benefit of having a third party kind of take some votes away from Bush at the time. John Kerry didn't win. Obama did win, but he ran on big ideas. So I think that the evidence shows us that big ideas are good. You know, we should be owning the lane of big ideas, economic justice.
That's why we still talk about FDR
for workers
or Ronald Reagan for
that. Because those guys came in with really big plans and they got it done, and they were pretty uncompromising about it. You know, I think when Obama ran, he kind of ran as like a populist, a real progressive with like big ideas, but he governed more from the center. And I think he thought that he would have some success winning over Republicans through bipartisan compromise. And that ended up really not working out very well. I mean, especially by the end of the 8 years, we just saw wholesale obstruction for anything that Obama wanted to do, including, confirm Supreme Court justice to the bench. So that really didn't end up working out. What we're keeping our eye on, I guess, for Joe Biden is he sort of ran, and he was lucky, I guess, as a candidate in some ways, because Donald Trump was so historically unpopular. He's so, kind of uniquely terrible in so many different ways that it was an easy choice, I think, for voters to kick Trump out and vote Biden in. But now that we've got this victory, it's really time to start thinking about how big can we govern? How big can Joe Biden govern? It's really not the time to pivot to the middle again. The incrementalism, I think we're well past that point. And I think if Democrats gave it a shot, I think they would see that voters respond to big ideas, and they're looking for fighters to accomplish them. That's what they want to see. They don't want to see kind of the middle of the road tactics of the past. That's what we think at Indivisible.
But we're hearing mixed messages. On the one hand, we heard in the 2018 midterms that it was the progressive candidates who really shined, who really took seats and did really well. But then in this election cycle, we actually lost Democratic seats in the House, and you get people like Congresswoman Spanberger coming out and saying, it's because they said Black Lives Matter, how dare they, and socialism, oh my God, we can't have, and which kind of flies in the face of big ideas, which is true.
I don't subscribe to the Congresswoman Spanberger school of thought. That's just me. I mean, I think if you look at who kept their seats and who didn't, a lot of, centrist Democrats lost their seats. The big progressives that everyone is accusing of being too lefty, like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and AOC, they all coasted to re-election. But actually a much better example is somebody like Katie Porter. Katie Porter in Orange County in California, she flipped that district from pretty solid red to blue, and she governed as a progressive. She didn't apologize for having progressive ideas. She didn't apologize for making the progressive case for policies, and she won easily. She won big time in her district that a lot of people thought might be close this go-round, because Orange County is still pretty conservative in a lot of ways. So I just don't think it follows that talking about reallocating resources from the police, who it seems like everyone can kind of agree that the police should not be who you call when, say, somebody's having a mental health crisis or some other crisis that really doesn't involve law enforcement. All anybody is saying is that there's better ways to spend that money. It's really not that controversial. Of course, Black Lives Matter, that shouldn't be up for debate, and people shouldn't be afraid to talk about it. I don't think that's what cost people their seats. I think, when you look at the numbers after this election, it was a very high turnout election, but that's true for both sides. It was very high turnout for Democrats, which is why Joe Biden won. But it was also a really high turnout for Donald Trump, which is why he won a lot of congressional seats, why a lot of congressional seats in, say, Florida, for example, ended up flipping back from blue to red because Donald Trump
because
did
he was
really
going
well
big
in
and
Florida.
going bold.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, I think you and I have talked about this before. Joe Biden did not win Florida, but progressive ideas did win in Florida. They had a minimum wage increase on the ballot that outperformed Joe Biden, by double digits, I think. Those are the sorts of ideas, that we should be pushing because they're very popular.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. We are talking for the hour with Megan Hatcher-Mays, a lawyer and the director of democracy policy at indivisible.org. Twitter handle important Megan or Indivisible Team. And we will be back with Megan Hatcher-Mays in just a moment. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So how do we deal with social media driving craziness in our society? We'll be right back. So, Megan, if big ideas are and progressive ideas and values are the things that drive electoral victories, why is it that I don't know about Reverend Warnock. I'm not sure exactly what his agenda is, but I know John Ossoff is an opponent. I believe he is an opponent of Medicare for All. Why is it that more than half of the Democratic Party today is unwilling to take positions on this? Congressman Pocan was explaining the other day on this program that if you brought a Medicare for All bill to the floor right now, you'd have a bunch of Democrats who would vote against it. And once they've voted against it, once they're on the record like that, it's damn near impossible to get them to change their minds. So you have to build the support for it before you bring it to a vote. A, do you think that that's the right legislative strategy? But B, why is it we have so many Democrats who are afraid or unwilling to embrace these progressive ideas? Is it just that they're funded by big corporations? What's going on?
Well, that's certainly part of it. I think there are Democrats who take big money, just like there are Republicans who take big money. I think the problem is a little lopsided, though. I don't mean to both sides this issue, but there's a lot of big pharmaceutical money in Congress, and they are very savvy about who they give their money to. So that's problematic, of course. I think a lot of it is maybe self-preservation. I think there have been studies that show that members of Congress underestimate the progressiveness of their constituents by quite a great deal. They think that their constituents are a lot more conservative than they actually are. And I think a lot of times they're just kind of scared to talk about it because, on the one hand, you see people like really lefty people like AOC talking about and Bernie Sanders talking about Medicare for All. They don't necessarily want to be lumped in because, Fox News and other sources have sort of successfully painted a lot of the more leftier members of Congress.
But it hasn't hurt those lefties. I mean, AOC and Bernie get reelected by overwhelming margins.
That's right. So I think the issue is that is just fear of losing their jobs, fear of having conversations with their constituents. But it's possible to make those changes, even if you get. I mean, D.C. statehood, sorry to digress, but D.C. statehood is a good example of that. To make D.C. the 51st state, that bill passed in the House this year, and there were 4 or 5 Democrats who were in Congress the last time that bill came up for a vote, and they all voted no. This time they changed their minds. Like, change is possible. It just requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of effort among members of Congress to have conversations with their colleagues, but also it means that constituents in their districts need to be more vocal about their priorities. So I think that's part of it, too. And that's what Indivisible is all about, obviously, is, wielding your power that way, contacting your members of Congress and letting them know how critically important these issues are so that members of Congress are hearing not just from lobbyists, but also hearing from the people that they actually represent. All of that stuff is really, really important. So,
and yet we have, the New Democrat Coalition or caucus. We've got the Blue Dog Caucus, which still has members. What does this say about the future of the Democratic Party?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think this will be a place, where Joe Biden has an opportunity to really be a part of shaping the future of the Democratic Party. And that means, inviting some of these fresher faces in so that we're kind of not stuck in kind of 80s thinking about what's possible and what isn't.
Well, then on the other side of this break, I want to ask you, how do we encourage him to do that? We'll be back with Megan Hatcher-Mays. Stick around. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Hey, we've got a new video up over at thomhartmann.com for people who are regular supporters of our program that talks about the list of things that if Democrats did them, they would never lose another election. And I mean that quite sincerely and quite seriously. And part of the proof of it is that Donald Trump campaigned on a number of these things, and millions of Republicans voted for him because of them. A couple of them, for example, Donald Trump promised he was going to stop crazy trade deals and stop companies from exporting jobs. He was going to force Apple to bring their factories back to America. Well, Democrats need to be talking about this, and they have been forever. I mean, this is Bernie and Sherrod Brown and these guys all with these things. Donald Trump said he was going to give everybody in America health care. He said we were going to get debt-free college. There's a whole bunch of stuff. You can check it all out. It's the new video. It's over at thomhartmann.com. Thanks for your support. Tag You're It. Megan Hatcher-Mays is on the line with us, and we're talking about the fate and future of the Democratic Party and politics and how we influence politics and all those kind of things. We have a new administration coming in, Megan, the Biden administration. I was delighted that Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris as his running mate. She, particularly in the last few years, has really embraced a progressive agenda pretty vigorously, and brought some people with her who, particularly Karine Jean-Pierre, who I have just so much respect for. I mean, oh my God, some of these people that she's surrounded herself with. So, how do we prevent Joe Biden from being essentially timid, which is how I would characterize at least some of the Obama years? And certainly the entire Democratic Party, it seems, since at least 2000. Even John Kerry, I think one of the reasons that it got as close as it did, close enough for him to lose it, even in Ohio, was that he was still being a timid Democrat. How do we convince Joe Biden that going bold and going progressive is the way to go?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it'll be. I think part of it depends on what happens in Georgia. I'm sorry to be a broken record on that, but I think that his agenda will reveal itself as soon as we know who controls the Senate. And I think his strategy will reveal itself once he knows. I mean, he's somebody who said that he thinks, he knows Mitch McConnell well. He thinks he can be able to work out a deal with him because, they were in the Senate together for a long time. I'm hoping that Joe Biden recalls not his time in the Senate, but his time in the Obama White House, where, Mitch McConnell basically said he was going to make it his mission to make Barack Obama a one-term president by blocking everything that he wanted to do. And we expect Mitch McConnell to do that exact same thing. So it'll be really critically important for Joe Biden not to fall into that same trap. Particularly if we have the majority in the Senate, there's no reason to weaken legislation to make it palatable to Republicans when you really only need to make it palatable to 50 Democrats plus Kamala Harris as a tiebreaker, get rid of the filibuster and actually get some stuff done. That'll be critically important. And I think that what Indivisibles are hoping to do is to be kind of the steel in the spine that Democrats need to feel empowered to go big or go home. I think that that's what we have tried to do in the past, is that they don't need to be afraid because their constituents have their backs. And I think that's kind of how we're thinking about how we're going to work with the Joe Biden administration. I think our power is most efficient when folks are talking directly to their members of Congress, and then the members of Congress go and talk to Joe Biden. Members only represent about a few 100,000 people. Joe Biden represents hundreds of millions. So I think the goal will continue to be stay focused on Congress, particularly in the House, and try to bubble up some energy from members to the Biden administration that way. That way, you know, we're being as effective as possible with our grassroots power. I think that's the way to go. I think if we lose the Senate, it's going to be a lot more challenging, but there's still a lot of stuff that Biden can do through executive action and through administrative rulemaking. Sorry, I know. Please, everyone, don't fall asleep at the phrase administrative rulemaking.
No, I get that. I get that. But let me take this a step further here, because we just have about 2 minutes until we're going to hit a break again. John Adams presided over the Senate. He chose who was going to speak when he was vice president, because the vice president is the president of the Senate. He was one of at least a dozen vice presidents who did that. In 1923, I think it was, the Senate rules actually the vice president just started deferring to the Senate Majority Leader. But the Senate Majority Leader is not a title that exists in the Constitution. I realize that there are people who say if Kamala Harris walked in there on day one and said, I'm president of the Senate, I'm taking over, Bernie, you have the floor, you may speak, you may offer legislation. We're going to hold a vote on this damn stuff, and we're going to get people on the record. I realize that there may be an immediate, even constitutional blowback that would take this to the Supreme Court, but at least she would try. I'm hearing from Democrats like, oh, that's not practical, and we shouldn't push things that far. After 4 years of this crap we put up with, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm definitely in favor of just doing things that are crazy for the common good. I mean, I think Donald Trump, if anything, has shown that he will do the same, but for evil, why not do big, theatrical things for good? Really put Republicans back on their heels. I mean, this is a party that won't even acknowledge that Joe Biden won the election. I mean, they don't care about democracy. They don't care about governing. So why not do some big, crazy stuff and really get them on the record, as like refusing to provide basic relief to their constituents.
Right.
Why not?
Right. I think it would be a significant shakeup. It would be a strengthening, arguably, of executive power, which everybody's a little nervous about right now. But on the other hand, Mitch McConnell has just been a boulder in the stream. I mean, it's amazing. We'll be back on the other side of this break here with Megan Hatcher-Mays, lawyer and director of democracy policy at indivisible.org. And you can tweet her at ImportantMegan or Indivisible Team. Stick around. We'll be back in about 5 minutes.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And if you haven't signed up with indivisible.org, get over there and check out their website. They're doing incredible work. It's one of those good news, bad news days. Hey, it's Monday. It's the beginning of a brand new week. It's also the beginning of the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraising drive, the pledge drive. And the bad news is that we are only halfway to our goal, and we just finished 2 weeks of this pitch. We have 5 days left. That's the bad news. We've really got to pick this up. The good news is that Andrew from San Diego has said that if we hit our goal for this fundraising drive, he's going to kick in an extra 10 grand. And that means that your donation, as it gets us toward this goal, could help us unlock that extra $10,000 that is a not inconsequential amount of money for Free Speech TV. I mean, what we're trying to raise this week is just an additional $90,000. This network it's not, NBC with 1,000 employees or 10,000 or whatever it is. I think there's about a little fewer than 20 employees at Free Speech TV, and they do everything very carefully, very thoughtfully, very cautiously in terms of costs. Free Speech TV is always just, run like a really, really well-run nonprofit that is very, careful about where the money goes. And on the other hand, has always relied on its listeners, its viewers, you, to keep it on the air. So here we are. We're way behind. I mean, we should be at least 2/3 there, right? Because we're 2/3 of the way through the fundraising drive now. We're only 50%. So we're way behind. And Andrew in San Diego has said, hey, let me dangle this little carrot out here in front of you. So your donations all throughout this week could help unlock that $10,000 from Andrew and help us hit, well, first we have to hit the $90,000 goal for the week. And then, we'd have $100,000 for the week. And we will have hit our goal for this 3-week fundraising drive, which means you get another 3 months of Free Speech TV, and I get to go back to reading book reports. So it's, we all win, right? But here we are right now. Anyhow, there's a couple of different ways to give to Free Speech TV. You can either make a monthly recurring donation, which is like a really important. That's the foundational stuff for Free Speech TV. You've probably noticed if you listen to your local NPR affiliate that they have almost entirely moved to this model. They started that, 6-7 years ago, and they've really pushed in that direction, at least here in Oregon and Washington, D.C., where I've heard these pitches. And it's for a good reason. It's the same reason Free Speech TV is doing it, is it gives the organization the ability to predict, to budget. Budgeting is a form of prediction, right? But to predict with some confidence how much revenue they're going to have, because they know how many people have authorized them to say, yes, take $5 a month off my credit card, or $20 a month, or $25 a month, or $30 a month, or whatever it may be. So those kinds of gifts, those monthly recurring gifts, are really important. And so are the one-time gifts. And you can do both, by the way. You can call up and say, hey, I want that tumbler. Here's my, however much it is. I think they're $100. Yeah, $100. But also, after that, just take $5 out a month for the next, until I tell you to stop, or for the next year or whatever. So here are the premiums that are available to you. With a $20 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV Fight for Democracy sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV webcam cover, or the nice, good, sturdy tote bag, canvas tote bag that says change never happens from the bottom up. With a $75 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV black hat, or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of a set of 2 Free Speech TV face masks, or the no doubt soon to be a collector's item Quarantine 2020 tumbler. With the $120 gift, you have your choice of the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, or the Free Speech TV social distancing kit, or either of my books, The Hidden History of Monopolies or The Hidden History of Oligarchy. Any one of those 4 things for $120. With a $240 gift, we will connect for an hour one afternoon. Typically, we do it Pacific time around 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, something like that. And the next dates are January 13th and February 17th. Get together a small group of people to just hang out and talk about whatever you would like. And some of these conversations have been just really enlightening to me, and I hope to the people on them. And or you can have the Free Speech TV hoodie with a $240 gift, or the Reclaiming Our Democracy book set, which is The Hidden Histories of Oligarchy and Monopoly. With a $360 gift, you can get the tumbler. You can, with a $360 gift. And The Hidden History of Oligarchy, autographed by the author, by the way. All of my books are autographed. The Hidden History of Monopolies, which means you can sell them, for more on eBay. A set of 2 face masks, and the Quarantine 2020 tumbler. And with a $1,000 gift, get in line to come to Portland and see our beautiful city and hang out with us as we do our show. So those are the premiums. Bottom line, Free Speech TV needs your help. We're trying to raise that, we're trying to hit that goal so that we can unlock Andrew's $10,000. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Let him know you're watching our show. The Hidden History of the Supreme Court tells the story of Nixon and Reagan's committing treason to steal the White House. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at ThomHartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high sugar, high salt, high fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Megan Hatcher-Mays is with us talking about democracy and indivisible and all that other stuff, all that other good stuff that kind of ties together. Indivisible.org, of course, is the website. And Megan, I referenced this earlier, but we never really did this deep dive into it. Facebook, and I realize Facebook is not unique in this. Twitter does the same thing. And probably other social media does as well, but they're the giant, and Facebook owns a bunch of other ones, Instagram and whatnot, that do the same thing. And is that their algorithms, for example, on Facebook, both Facebook and Twitter in the last, 5-6 months, I've gone in search of all those right-wingers and their right-wing memes, and I can't find them, or it's really hard to find them, because once Facebook figures out that I'm a liberal, all they push to me is, even in my own family, I'm not hearing from the right-wingers in my own family that I'm following. I mean, they get demoted in terms of, and what this produces is not only an enhanced or an increased polarization in our society, but it also causes people, whether they're on the right or the left, and the ones on the right with, running around with their guns are the ones that concern me the most, frankly, but I think that this is poison right across the board. It causes us all to think that our little point of view and our little circle of family and friends represents the majority opinion in America. A, do you think that my analysis, diagnosis, whatever you want to call it, is accurate? And if so, B, what do we do about this? And I'm not talking about, do we break up Facebook, although feel free. But how do we deal with, how do you talk to family and friends when their entire universe of information and data and their entire social support network is all self-reinforcing within one particular political perspective?
Yeah, it's really hard. I don't know that there's a silver bullet. I mean,
Jennifer? Or Megan, excuse me?
Or ever see. Yeah, can you hear me?
I'm not hearing Megan, Sean.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I hear you now. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. I'm not sure what happened there. Facebook, yes, it's a problem. I think, it's difficult to kind of fully figure out how to solve this issue. I mean, I think that they kind of overcorrected. They got criticized for not showing enough conservative viewpoints, and then they overcorrected. So now when you look at the top 10 things that are on Facebook, it's like, super conservative talk show hosts, super conservative websites. And so that kind of tipped the
Might have to do with Mark
really.
Zuckerberg having private dinners with Donald Trump in the White House.
Yes, and he hired a lot of GOP strategists and lobbyists to come work for Facebook. He really leaned into the conservative world a little bit there. And so I think, it's really difficult to know how to solve the issue. I mean, I think real life conversations have been shown to be like the most effective to kind of pull people back from the edge a little bit. But I think what we're seeing is, a little bit of confirmation bias where people feel really strongly that they've gotten a raw deal. And when they go on Facebook and see a headline that matches how they feel about something, it's really resonant. And it's hard to undo that, especially since, we've been talking about this whole show, like how do Democrats break through? I think this is an ongoing conversation for the future of the party is how do you build up that trust between Democrats and voters again, because a lot of voters actually like progressive ideas as long as you don't characterize them as progressive or democratic ideas. And I think a lot of that is kind of intertwined with social media and Fox News and all of these sources that, go after Democrats as people, but then that has the effect of making their ideas seem suspicious.
Which raises, a correlate question, which is, I saw on Fox News, and I think it was 4 or 5 days before the election, a poll that showed that 71% of Americans, if I'm remembering this correctly, it might have been 72, but it was over 70% of Americans are supportive of a national single-payer health care system. Mm-hmm. If you don't call it Medicare for all, or if you don't call it Bernie Sanders' program, 71% of Americans support it, including a majority of Republicans. And Fox News, for God's sake, reported this. And we still can't get a lot of Democrats, to say, yeah, I'm in favor of a public option. What does this say about our political system? What's Indivisible doing about this? And I don't mean to cast this in some kind of savior complex, like we're expecting you guys to save us from this. What is it that we have to do as well to make sure that not only does this dialogue happen in the public, the old Franklin Roosevelt saying, yes, I like that idea, make me do it, that this actually happens, and that our politicians get it, how important it is that this really happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a couple of different layers. One is, kind of once you, the way that we think about it is dealing with structural democracy reform is kind of the key to unlock all the other issues that we care about as progressives. So once you get money out of politics, once you make it easier for people to vote, once you add in election security and all these other protections that actually protect our democracy from a lot of corporate interference or other types of interference, that's when you can start to have actual real conversations about policy, because then elected officials are no longer beholden to pharmaceutical companies or for-profit hospitals or insurance companies and what have you. Then you can start to have real conversations about what's best for people. And we can't have that right now because our democracy doesn't work right. It was designed poorly and ended up giving up a lot of power to a very small group of people. So first you have to change that. Then you can start to deal with some of these other things. And I think where Indivisible comes in is, one, pushing for those structural democracy reforms. And then two, making sure Democrats know that, one, that we're paying attention. I love what you just said. I love that FDR quote that you just used, make me do it. That's what we're all about. It's like, look, you don't need to be afraid. We're going to support you if you do this. And then if you don't, we're going to support somebody who will. And so I think where AOC has been a real breath of fresh air in the Democratic Party is that she wasn't afraid to challenge somebody who maybe got a little too comfortable in the establishment, the Democratic establishment, and she won. And I think that's true for lots of other folks in the squad as well. Ayanna Pressley also defeated a Democratic challenger. So if Democrats won't follow what their constituents want them to do, there will be consequences for that, which is getting primaried. That's kind of how it works. And I think for a long time, Democrats were afraid to do it. A lot of folks, especially in New York, where AOC ran, a lot of people were waiting their turn. And she didn't. She ran for it. She went for it. And she ran on big ideas, and she beat the incumbent. And that's possible. It's possible to do that if Democrats, sort of these more establishment Democrats, more centrist or moderate Democrats, won't do what they're hearing their constituents say they want. Then that opens the door for primary challenge.
Well, there's other possibilities as well. First of all, to deal with the Senate. When Abraham Lincoln was president, he was very concerned that after Reconstruction, he may end up with a Senate that was in the control of Democrats, of former slave advocate Southern Democrats. And at that point in time, my recollection is it took 118,000 people in a territory to qualify that territory for statehood, and Nevada had something like 17,000 residents, non-Indian residents. But Lincoln made it a state anyway because he needed two Republican senators. And then in 1898 or 1889, as I recall, Benjamin Harrison was president, another Republican president, and he had the same problem. The Democrats were rising in power again in the Senate. And so the Dakota Territory, which was one chunk of land, which had a total of fewer than 100,000 residents. My recollection is it was around 20 some odd thousand and 30 or 40 some odd thousand, south and north. Benjamin Harrison, President Harrison, split that into two and made it two states, South and North Dakota, and got them both pushed through Congress just to give himself 4 more Republican senators. So it's not like we haven't done this before for purely political purposes. In fact, I would argue that's how it's always been done. So why aren't we talking about Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C.? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the clock here. I'll ask you that question. You can give me the answer to that on the other side of the break, okay? We'll be right back.
Okay.
Thank you. With Megan Hatcher Mays. Megan Hatcher Mays, a lawyer and director of democracy policy with Indivisible. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
What's the old saying? You get so wrapped up in the topic, you lose track of time. We'll be right back with more from Megan. Stick around. So, Megan, your thoughts on statehood?
Yes, I've got a lot of thoughts, particularly for the District of Columbia, where I live. So for personal reasons, I would love D.C. to become a state. But, as you had mentioned, it's always been very political to turn different territories into states. And it's almost always been the case that territories have become states because whoever was in charge at the time needed more political capital. But now D.C. is basically, well, not now, historically, it's been the case that D.C. is being denied full representation in Congress because of our demographics and because of our politics. D.C. is majority non-white, we're majority people of color in the city, and we are overwhelmingly Democratic city. I think Hillary Clinton won by like 94% in 2016, and I think Joe Biden was right up there as well. Yeah, so we have historically been denied both for political reasons and both for demographics, and it's not right. So fixing that problem would obviously enfranchise hundreds of thousands of D.C. residents, but it would also fundamentally change the makeup of the Senate to make it more representative of the country as a whole. So right power, very small group of people. So we're basically held at the whims of minority rule. And if you made D.C. a state, you got 2 new senators, that you would start to undo that problem. Puerto Rico, I know, just had a referendum. I think there were, those statehood referendums in Puerto Rico can be kind of messy, but if they want to be a state, that would be fantastic. That would also go a long way towards making the United States Senate a lot more representative of the people and not just land.
Yeah. So what is this something that Indivisible is taking on? And if so, what are the contours of the campaign, and how can individual people pitch in?
Yeah, totally. So statehood and democracy reform in general and statehood in particular are going to be big priorities for us next year. For all the reasons I just mentioned, it would go a very long way towards fixing the Senate, which is sort of designed to give a lot of power to a small group of people. That should not be the case. So we're going to be fighting really hard to get H.R. 51 for the 51st state passed in the House again. Working with my old boss, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who does not have a vote in the House, but who has championed this bill every year since she was elected. So that's what we're going to be fighting for. I think if people want to get involved, definitely go to our website, indivisible.org. You can see get some talking points on statehood and what you can ask your member of Congress to do. Congresswoman Norton has been trying to get every single Democrat signed on to her statehood bill as an original co-sponsor, so you can check and see if your member of Congress is on the bill or has pledged to be on the bill for next Congress. And there's actually a few Democrats in the Senate who have not signed on to the statehood bill in the Senate.
Really?
So if your senator is Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, Mark Kelly, give them a call and see if they will join as a co-sponsor.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, you got it. Megan Hatcher-Mays. We're talking with the Director of Democracy Policy for Indivisible.org, also an attorney. Megan Hatcher-Mays, Important Megan on Twitter, and Indivisible Team on Twitter. We'll be right back. Stick with us. The Hartmann Report is a free daily podcast 7 days a week, and you can find our entire 3-hour podcast over at thomhartmann.com. In our latest video for folks who support our show over at thomhartmann.com, it's pretty mind-boggling, actually. The candidate Trump back in 2016 said, I'm not going to cut Social Security like every other Republican, and I'm not going to cut Medicare or Medicaid. Every other Republican is going to cut, but I won't. That's what he said. Well, what did his budget actually propose? His budget actually proposed, this is last year's budget. Congress didn't pass it, thank God, but this is what his budget proposed. $1.9 trillion in cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, and $26 billion in cuts to Social Security. And now he is block granting Medicaid to the states, which is already cutting back on Medicaid programs in the red states. You can check it all out over at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back. We are talking with Megan Hatcher-Mays, the Director of Democracy Policy at Indivisible.org. And Megan, you and I were just talking about what do we do about getting statehood, at the very least for Washington, D.C., and maybe even for Puerto Rico. If you want to just summarize that in a sentence or so, and how people can find out what's going on over at indivisible.org and which Democrats have not yet signed on.
Yes. The Congresswoman Norton, who represents the District of Columbia, she's trying to get every single Democrat in the House signed on as an original co-sponsor of that bill. So you can go and check and see if your member of Congress has already signed on, or if they might need a little bit of needling to sign on, or to pledge to sign on when she introduces the bill next Congress. And there's also 3 senators, I believe, who are not in the Senate, who are not co-sponsors of the D.C. statehood bill in the Senate, and they are Joe Manchin, Angus King, Kirsten Sinema, and Mark Kelly. So there's actually 4, sorry. So if those are 4 people, any of them are your senators, please give them a call, have them join. Statehood for D.C. would be fantastic. It would be a huge victory for racial justice and also for our democracy, because it would go a long way towards making your Senate more representative.
Right. Another option for changing this bizarre situation where California, with 38 million people, has the same number of senators as Wyoming with 800,000. Correct my numbers if I'm wrong, but it's in that neighborhood.
That sounds
anyway.
about right.
Yeah, would be for California to split into 2 or 3 states, New York City to separate and become its own state. Arguably, Texas and Florida could do the same. I'm assuming that those are just dead in the water because of, within these states, you've got this sense of citizenship that's just not going to go for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the keystone for any statehood movement, and this goes back, for the entire history of our nation, we were saying that every state is admitted for political reasons, which is true. But, the keystone of an admissions process is that the citizens of that territory want to be a state, that they have determined for themselves that that's what they want. So if it were the case that folks in, say, San Francisco or parts of Northern California wanted to split off and become their own state, and they went through the whole process of showing that the majority of folks wanted to do that, then yeah, they should pursue it. Or if Manhattan wanted to secede from the rest of the state of New York, it's all about what the people who live there want. And that's true for Puerto Rico as well, if that's what they determine for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening. Which brings us to the Electoral College. The last Republican who ran for president who is not already president, the last Republican who ran for president and won a majority of the popular vote in the United States, was George Herbert Walker Bush in 1988. That's crazy. We've had 2 Republican presidents since then, and neither one of them were elected by the majority of the people. Taking down the Electoral College, I mean, there's 2 strategies for this. One is passing a constitutional amendment. The other is the Interstate Compact. The Interstate Compact seems like the most likely way to make this happen. Is this a project that Indivisible is working on? And if not, why not?
Yeah, it's really important. It's difficult, though, because you have to get the states to sign on, right, for it to become, for it to kick in. And right now we don't have the numbers in a lot of states. I think the Republicans still have captured a majority of the state governorships. But there's actually a third route towards fixing the Electoral College, and that's by actually adding more seats to the House of Representatives. That number is set by federal law. It's not in the Constitution. It's that 435 number. And it's been stuck at 435 since the 1920s. Up until the 1920s, they had been steadily increasing the number of representatives in the House to match the increasing number of people that live in this country, and they stopped doing it in the 1920s. If you added more seats to the House, one, it's a good policy because that way representatives would represent a smaller number of people, so they'd be more responsive to constituent needs. But also, that's how they determine the number of electors that states get. It's the number of congressional districts in your state plus 2 senators. So if you were to add seats and divvy them up in more populous states, so, I don't know, split Chicago into 5 or 6 congressional districts instead of 2, that would give Illinois more electors.
Is there a movement to make this happen, Megan?
We're looking into it for sure. It can be done through legislation. You don't need a constitutional amendment to do it. I think there are some members of Congress who are interested. Nothing concrete yet, but it's for sure something that we've been thinking about. There's a very good op-ed that lays out the whole policy in the New York Times. If people Google the bigger house, you can read more about it. And I think that there are members of Congress who are interested. We'll just have to wait and see what happens next year to see if it's actually something we might be able to accomplish. Definitely easier than doing a constitutional amendment, though.
Amazing stuff. Megan Hatcher-Mays, Director of Democracy Policy at Indivisible.org. Megan, thanks so much for dropping by. It's been great talking with you today.
Thanks. I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And keep up the great work. Indivisible.org. Check it out. And thank you for being with us today. It's been a great day. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires you. Yes, you. There are things you can do. So get out there, get active, however you can. Even if it's just, piping up from time to time on social media. Tag You're It. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are CB Distillery, CBD for sleeping. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. The Clean Phone Pro, phone sanitizer and charger. More info at thenewdealshop.com. ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom. X-Chair, changing the world one seat at a time. More information at xchairtom.com. Bloomsy Box, simply better blooms. More info available at bloomsybox.com, code TOM. And Boll & Branch Sheets, crafted for the common good. More info at bollandbranch.com, code TOM.